And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Attention to roll call.
That's right, everybody. Good morning. Getting close to Christmas. Hope everybody's getting ready, getting all their plans set in place with their families. Good morning to all our friends. Sherry says she's not feeling well. She's under the weather. Sherry, hope you feel better, but glad you're with us. John, what's up, man? Hump day. Ron Lason says hump day. That's right. Getting over the week.
A lot of news yesterday, bro. I don't even know if we're going to be able to get through it. I know we're on a tight time schedule. We're definitely going to be talking about the NYPD vehicle pursuit policy. I mean, we did 2 episodes prior on it. We quoted in numerous publications in regards to the policy itself. Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how now there's basically 1 vehicle crash a day as a result of these vehicle pursuits. But a lot transpired in one police plaza yesterday. So I really don't care where we start. It's like there's a lot of things going on.
Let's start what's going on in one police plaza. Everybody's excited by it. My phone's been off the hook. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Well, I know you and I both saying it's great. There needs to be a toss-up right now with the upper echelon of the police department. Again, I'm going to stick with my stance that I've been saying for a long time. When it comes to upper echelon, they're infected, they're compromised. There needs to be a complete sweep of all these bums. But unfortunately, what's happening, and this is the reality, because of the failures of leadership, it's really the rank and file that ends up paying for it, right? We're starting to see some transfers. We're starting to see some movement. We even seen a response by Eric Adams, and his response, I think, was absolutely insane. I think every cop should be insulted when he said that cops, I mean, it's almost like a backhanded compliment. Oh, the cops are out there doing a great job. Oh, they're doing a great, but cops are great at hiding out. Now, that may be true, but who's responsible for putting those cops in these assignments that may be useless or not purposeful right now while you have a crime problem, while you have a problem with illegal military-age males? Do the cops assign themselves? No. Someone assigns them. So, again, that's a failure on the leadership also. But what do we hear? It's an insult and a backhanded compliment to the rank and file.
I think that's an important point there. I think a lot of cops are pissed that we've been tweeting about the transfers and everything else. And I really don't care because you guys aren't looking at the big picture of it all. We're not making fun of you. We're not saying you should get kicked out of your spot. We're saying the idiots that you aligned yourself with got you kicked out of your spot. The idiots that you said were doing a great job for the NYPD didn't transfer you properly, and now you're getting them retransferred. You're getting screwed when they're the ones that should be gone. You're the one getting screwed. And somebody called me yesterday. They were asking me about the temporary transfers, the 500 temporary transfers, right? The ones, the over 500, the 500 people that got the telephone record, right? The telephone record transfers, and now the department didn't know where they were. That was like last week, right? The department didn't know where these people were because they were assigned to their old command. They weren't sure what tour they were on. And I heard it was like 1,000 people that were just getting these telephone transfers. Now, I feel bad for those people. You know what I'm saying? I feel bad that now you got transferred, you went to where you want to go to, and now you're getting pushed back. But that's not my fault. That's not Eric's fault. That's the person that got you their fault that didn't go through the proper channels. They didn't do it properly. So now you're getting pushed back. And, the person said, well, what do you think about that? I said, what do I think about it? I said, in the short term, it's bad for morale for those officers who were working to get transferred to go to some place that they wanted to go. Now they're getting transferred back right before Christmas. It's bad for morale for them. But overall, for the health of the department, it's a good thing. But it's messed up that it even happened. Shouldn't have happened. And now same thing with all these transfers yesterday. We had 10 people out of First Deputy Tony Consilla's office. 10 people, 3 sergeants, 7 detectives, all swatched out. I'm not jumping up and down because you guys got transferred. I'm showing you what the hell's going on in this department. It's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. I'm not saying, oh, yeah, go to your number squad. You guys are lazy. I don't even know any of you. I have no idea who you are. Some of you were probably great workers. I have no idea. I don't know. And I don't care. ultimately what's going on is none of them, the entire upper echelon of the NYPD, starting with Eric Adams, should be in the position they are. It can't be that everybody's corrupt around Eric Adams and his entire top tier chief executives all had to leave, but he's fine. It can't be. It can't be that he's doing a good job managing. It can't be.
Again, we have been the most impactful source to help the rank and file by far more than the unions. As far as I'm concerned, the unions, they're done. They're in bed with the enemy. It's just money going in the garbage. Useless. There's no representation there. The only representation you get out of the union, if anyone wants to justify it, is your dental and your prescription plan. And believe me, there's options out there for dental plans and prescription plans that are pretty much on par with what you pay right now. As far as any other representation, it's just not there. A contract, you have to get a contract. Those contracts, you don't need these union officials to get contracts. As far as getting actual representation, we know if you're actually jammed up and you're in a pickle, you get your own attorney. And as far as the leadership goes, it's their failure. It's not the rank and file. So for Eric Adams to say, oh, cops do a great job of hiding out, I think it was the most insane thing. And I would say, I can't believe that the cops are not in an uproar. And if this is not further proof that the unions are in bed with the enemy, watch what Eric Adams says. Because every union official, you know what? If Ed Mullins was not in the predicament he's in right now, if Ed Mullins was still with the SBA, at least you could say Ed Mullins would be saying right now, how could you be saying that? He would be saying vile names, right? Because he was the most outspoken. He would be saying vile things right now in opposition to what Eric Adams says. I'm not happy for the cops that you're getting tossed around like a yo-yo, but it's the system that allowed that. People are getting moved around because of nepotism. There's no accountability. It's not going through proper channels. And now because they're starting to make the wrongs and start to try to fix them, which, it's going to take a long time to do. Really? You're in this predicament for the rank and file. And again, for Eric Adams to blame the rank and file is the most ridiculous thing. Oh, you assigned yourself? No. Even if it's by nepotism or it's by an actual failure of you getting your assignment, some useless spot, or just a waste of manpower, and you could be more effective and utilized on patrol, that's not your fault. If I had a great opportunity, I would take it too, and show with most people. Again, even the lieutenant right now, who's under extreme amount of scrutiny for an excessive amount of overtime, did not get that overtime on her own. Could she have? In some facets, yes. But ultimately, there's someone in leadership there. His name is Jeffrey Madry, that allowed that, permitted it, and perpetuated that for her to get in that position. So again, leadership, failure.
100%. We say that all the time, right? The job of a supervisor is to protect your subordinates from themselves. Obviously, Jeffrey Madry failed highly at that. We have a $400,000 lieutenant who more than likely is going to get arrested. Now, she could have took all this overtime, made 300, 350. Nobody would have blinked an eye. But she wasn't protected. The chief of department did not protect his own people from themselves. He did not manage his own office. The CO of the chief of department's office did not manage that office. Right? How many executives are in that chief of department's office? A lot. How many people knew what the hell was going on in that office and no one blinked an eye or said a word? Where is the integrity in that office? Right? And don't think for 1 second that scandal wasn't leading to all these transfers and all this mishmash and flip-flopping. But the thing that annoys me the most, I'm going to play this video of Eric Adams. But the thing that annoys me the most about this video is the media. You annoy me the most out of all this because the headlines, and don't get me wrong, I blame the cops too, and I blame the supervisors, and I blame all of us because we have what's known as like a 1 week memory. Because I vividly remember 3 years ago, I remember Eric Adams talking vividly about how he was going to civilianize the NYPD. Some of the COs were going to be civilianized, right? He was going to get rid of all the cops and admin positions, right? And here we are 3 years later, and he's saying the same exact thing And everyone's like, yeah, yeah, get those bums out of One Police Plaza. Get those bums out of here. And listen, I worked in an admin position at the end of my career, but I also worked on the street. So any of you lifelong street guys, I really don't give a shit. I don't think that you don't hold the candle to me or I don't hold the candle to you. I flipped on both sides of the coin, and I'll tell you right now, I worked my ass off in both of those positions. And there are some things that you're not going to be able to civilianize. There are just some things that you need a uniform member of service to do, and you're going to wish that a uniform member of service did it. But you don't know what you're talking about because you were never on the flip side of the coin. So all the big push, I'm like, yeah, am I the one saying that, oh, everything should be uniform? No, I'm not saying that at all. Are there jobs that are unnecessary in the police department? Yeah, absolutely. And you know how much they've grown under Eric Adams? Significantly. They've grown significantly under this man. We have people assigned to the Department of Sanitation. We have people assigned to give out dirty contracts. We have people assigned to kiss this one's ass and that one's ass. We have cops taking photos of these people. We have social media cops. I'm not talking about any of those spots. I'm not talking about any of those spots. I'm not talking about the day where you're showing up drunk and then you're going out and shooting people in New Jersey. I'm not talking about any of those spots. Of course, those spots could go. But like this guy said 3 years ago, he was gonna fix all that. And here we are 3 years ago, and guess what? Now he's gonna fix it again. And what has he done the last 3 years? Failed.
I clearly remember that also. That was part of his campaign, right? His campaign was about public safety. His campaign was also utilization of manpower in the police department. I specifically remember that because you and I even did an episode about this early on in our podcast when we started doing shows together. And I remember we specifically spoke about that. And I told you my stance on it. I said that most admin positions, the overwhelming majority, should be civilianized. But you and I both agreed there are some positions within the police department that have to be uniformed personnel because maybe it's classified information or something where you actually uniform personnel and you need a police perspective. You need a police eye on it. But again, going back to Eric Adams, for him to put the blame on the rank and file, to me, is insane. Every cop needs to wake up right now. You need to open your eyes and you need to listen to this. You need to watch this. He's blaming you. You have 86 some odd people in a social media unit. Social media unit, that is absurd. 86 police officers. Arguably, those 86 police officers could make up a roster for one of the small precincts in New York City. Most precincts have about 200, but there are some small precincts, maybe the 100, 111, where 86 police officers would make up the majority of that command, especially like the 100. So that's insane. How many cops do you actually need a social media unit? But guess what? With egomaniacs like we have in the upper echelon right now, John Schell and Kaz Daughtry and Jeffrey Madry, and you got these egomaniacs and Tariq Shepard, you need 86 some odd people in a social media unit. You need these cops hiding out there so that they can monitor journalists. And ultimately, who's the number one enemy? New York's finest retired Unfiltered podcast, because we actually give out critical analysis that is just on target because of what we're saying, and our friends and listeners, we're saying the truth. But Eric Adams is completely irresponsible. He's a character. He's been saying for 3 years. That's how they're going to, they're going to correct the manpower issues. They're going to utilize police officers. If you have a firearm and you're in good health, you should be out in the street. But again, how are we blaming the rank and file? And of course, because it's going to come third person, and the upper echelon does a great job of infecting the minds of the rank and file. You're going to hear from third person. New York's finest retired Unfiltered podcast is saying this is a good thing. This is a good thing that these transfers are happening. And now, if there's necessary positions, then you go through the proper channels so that your position is actually secure. So if anyone faulted you, if you're in one of these positions where you're now being transferred, it's the upper echelon that did you wrong because they put you in a spot that you weren't secure. And now you're paying the price for it. It's the leadership is not standing up saying, you know what, we made a mistake. We never hear accountability from the upper echelon. We've never heard the upper echelon say, you know what, we made a mistake here. We try to circumvent some things going on right here because of protest, because of all the minutia we have with the police department right now. And unfortunately, the rank and file is paying for it, and we're going to fix it going forward. But no, Eric Adams, along with this administration, is blaming the cops. John, how many times did you assign yourself in your career? I didn't. I mean, I thought it was personnel. Apparently, you hide out and find these own spots for yourself.
I've never assigned, but Tariq Shepard assigned himself to the rank of 3-star chief. So that's a first, another first in the Eric Adams administration. Guy goes out and buys 3 stars and slaps it on his shoulder and thinks he's a 3-star chief without getting a promotion or an operations order or anything else. But yeah, dude, it's like it's infuriating to me, and it's infuriating to me because the cops, the seasoned detectives, they don't see what the problem is. Right? You post about it, you're the bad guy. When I see John, well, I'll be in New York this week, and I'll be up there for a couple of weeks. So if anybody wants to come see me, come see me. But the thing is, you're missing the whole point. This is the guy that you need to be playing. Because I'll tell you right now, what they do, they're transferring all you people, right? And look at the people they're doing in the squad, right? He was staffing these gun violence suppression teams, right? People actually doing long-term investigations, doing search warrants, getting firearms off the street, getting violent perpetrators off the street. And what's he doing? He's getting rid of all of them. You guys are useless. Get out of here. You guys are useless. You guys are nothing. This guy that affected 9 arrests in his career, that hid his entire career, that if we had 36,000 Eric Adams running around, New York City would look like it has 2 cops on the street because he was a zero. A complete, utter zero. His police career, he was so much of a zero that when he ran for the mayor, what'd he do? He had all his records sealed. Eric Dim's record's wide open. My record's wide open. Your record's wide open. His record's sealed. Why? Because he was a zero. He was a loser cop. He was a loser state senator. He was a loser borough president, and he's a loser mayor. And now what is he doing? He's blaming you guys. Oh yeah, they should have. I have her doing an analysis. Yeah, you did an analysis 3 years ago. What happened to that? You didn't figure out anything, and you just staffed all of these losers. He's appointed the worst people. He's made the worst picks to run the New York City Police Department out of anybody. And there was another thing. And Boots Malacca, just real quick, he said that Dr. Phil interview. Dr. Phil comes in to clean people's images up. We actually did make a video about his flip-flopping on the border stance that nobody wants to talk about. He's like, all of a sudden he wants to close the border, right? Dr. Phil's a loser. Notice how many times Dr. Phil tweeted about that. Notice how many times he used the word unfiltered. Notice how many times. That was not a coincidence. Notice how many times Dr. Phil used that. And I heard somebody's going to go work for Dr. Phil too. Looking forward to it. Maybe we could even do a sit-down one day and we can have an actual conversation. But I doubt it because you're a loser too. So, but the whole thing is this man. He sat down there before he even gets elected, he talks about how he was going to clean up the NYPD. He was going to rid the NYPD of bad cops. He was going to rid the NYPD of bad cops. You know what he did? He took the bad cops and he put them in leadership. And that's what you're seeing right now. Not only are they incompetent, they have low integrity. And by all means, some of them are corrupt.
Again, failure by the leadership. I mean, right now, Lieutenant Epps is in a very precarious position. Did she do this solely by herself? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's virtually impossible that this was not detected. I mean, you and I talked about this. In order for her to actually pull off this amount of overtime, she had to work approximately 78 to 80 hours a month. And if you break that down, she had to work every day under the impression that she didn't take any days off or any weeks of vacation off. So it's virtually impossible to actually make that overtime. But again, failure on the leadership. Again, she put in for overtime. The finest message is out there for anyone that's outside New York City. If you're a civilian or you're law enforcement for the New York City Police Department, we call it an actual finest message. It's a message that's actually transposed throughout the entire department, almost like a teletype, and which provides information on transfers, personnel, things like that. And of course, Lieutenant Epps has now put in for retirement. And I'm pretty sure it's about 7 months before she hits her 20 years. So if that's not an indication of an appearance of impropriety and that she's potentially under investigation and going to be charged, that's not, she was sold out. She was sold out to get a vested pension to save the upper echelon of the police department. That's an epic fail. An epic fail. Again, because of greed. The nepotism equates to corruption. She's there. She's in a position to get extreme amount of overtime. And her position is important, but no important than any other positions. Not more important than detectives that we have in homicide squads, detectives that we have doing investigations, police officers running around the street doing intrusive police work. No employee is that valuable that you need to make almost $500,000, that you're doubling your amount in overtime and virtually impossible. But again, John, just like we said, if she would have made about $300,000, maybe $325,000, that's a nice salary. It probably would have been undetected, even if that wasn't on the up and up. But of course, greed, which is one of the sins. Greed gets the best of people. But the upper echelon left her in this position, and they did a great job. They pushed her out, allowed her to get a vested pension. And if there's an investigation and she's going to be charged, she'll be in retirement and she'll be on her own.
Yeah. So I don't know if she was forced to vest or it was in her best interest to vest. I mean, I think she had really no choice. Like I said, I unfortunately think she's going to wind up facing criminal charges. It just is what it is. It was egregious. It was, the things that I'm hearing are just not good. And, and I think there's a lot of people involved in it. And it's, again, it's a failure in leadership, and people need to be protected from themselves. We have overtime procedures in place. We have them in place. Everyone knows the top 400 list. Everyone gets a look at that top 400 list. Everyone knows who's at the top of this list. Everybody. Not like the lower ranking people, but all the higher ranking people know it. I always had access to the list. My whole career, I had access to the list. I knew exactly where it was, where it wasn't, who was at top, who wasn't. Everyone knew what she was doing. Nobody stepped in to stop it. Nobody. It's a failure in leadership. They failed her. They failed you. They continue to fail you every single day. Disaster after disaster. And you know what I'm seeing? And you know what boggles my mind and what I see and that nobody sees? You have a billionaire heiress who probably doesn't even know how to shop or throw out her own garbage. Probably doesn't know how to do most of it. Probably never shoveled snow. Probably never done anything that you've ever had to do. Right? Never had the same experiences in life that you had. And she already, in 2 weeks, has managed this police department better than people who've been on this job for 30 years. Now, I'm not saying she's going to be a great police commissioner, but at least there's going to be some type of leadership. At least there's going to be some type of decision-making and control. I mean, like, what has been going on here for the last 3 years? He's backpedaling on everything. He ran on this platform and never did it. He ran on the platform. He was going to do solo patrol for cops. Remember that one? Remember that brilliant idea? He was going to do solo patrol on the train. Yeah, real smart. He was doing solo patrol on the train, hiding out in a broom closet, sleeping. That's what he was doing. That was probably the only time he was on the street too. And then after that, he was a permanent desk officer. It's absolute ridiculous. And now he's talking about it again. Listen to what he says, and then no one's upset by this. Nobody. No, you know who they're mad at? They're mad at you. They're mad at me. They're mad at Sal Greco. You guys, it's all your fault. Yeah, it's my fault? Okay. Here's the illustrious Eric Adams.
I spoke with the new commissioner, Commissioner Tisch, and say we need to do an analysis of all of our police personnel and see where they're assigned. I don't need a gun and shield to put barriers up. Why you gotta be in the barrier detail? Everybody got to get back on patrol. We need an all hands on deck. You have a gun, a shield. You're not dealing with, a medical issue. You need to be back on patrol. Everyone needs to be back on patrol so that we don't have shortages of police personnel. I want my people in the precincts. And that is what Commissioner Tish is going to do. She's going to do an analysis of all of these units. Cops are masters. As good as they are at fighting crime, they're masters at hiding out somewhere. We got to find them, go desk by desk, unit by unit, and say, what are you doing? And even if you are doing an assignment inside, then you got to give me 2 days a week when you're going out and do patrol. Everybody has to get back into the game of doing patrol, so you don't have a decrease in population. And that is our focus. And we have to deal with, here's what has hijacked our narrative. 3 things. Random acts of violence. Nothing shakes us more than a random act of violence. Walking down the block and being punched in the face.
John, you know what's funny? He can't help it. Sometimes, I say that they try to do their best to hide who they really are. But he says it right here. We've been trying to control the narrative. We've been trying to control the narrative. He's about to tell you what the 3 things are when it comes to crime, right? I mean, that's insane. Why do you have to control the narrative? What is your strategic crime plan to effectively combat crimes committed by illegal military-age males? What is your effective crime plan to prevent stranger rapes that are happening throughout the city, these heinous acts? What is your strategic crime plan to make the subways a better place for transient people, a better quality of life for people that are going to work? What is your actual crime plan? And you know what their plan is? It's what Marlon has coined. Shout out to Marlon, perception management. He says it right here. We're controlling the narrative. He can't help it, but that's the reality. The truth comes out. They try to pretend who they really are. But that's the truth. Change your perception, change your truth, change your reality by giving you BS and gaslighting you.
Yeah, and then there's the big debate, about Epps' pension, right? Like, obviously vesting is, if I don't know why people are so hooked on this VSF. It's $12,500 a year. It's taxed. Let's just wrap it up to, let's say you bring home $1,000 a month. I understand that a lot of that overtime that she did is not pensionable because you can only do 20% higher than your last year. But the 20% prior is still a lot higher than $12,500 a month. And when you have zero overtime, it doesn't matter. Now, obviously, the longer you could stay on the job, the more money you'll make. But yeah, so I don't really believe she had a choice to vest out or not. I think that whether someone told her to vest, she was told by the job, or she made the decision, I think that was her only decision. Because again, I think ultimately she could be facing criminal charges, unfortunately. And that's, to me, the money is a non-issue now. You're on the front cover of the paper. She's been through a lot in her life. Cancer survivor. She should have never been in the position to be able to do it. Again, we have these procedures in place. Where's the supervision? Oh, they're gonna do an analysis now. They're gonna do an analysis. You know who was in the position? Look, the guy right behind them that looks like a deer in headlights. That's the guy right there. That's the default of him right there. At what point is it negligence? At what point is it lack in leadership? Who's the CO of the chief of department's office? What the hell was he doing? Who is the ICO of the chief of department's office? What the hell is he doing? It's absolute insanity that people, and it's just idiot after idiot after idiot in this administration. The dumbest cops, the dumbest supervisors, they're in charge of the police department. The dumbest. I'm sorry. It is what it is. That's why I said I love the appointment of Jessica Tish, because at least she listen, she's not perfect. She definitely has some flaws. She's probably got more flaws than all of us. But I'll tell you right now, she wants to do the job. She's righteous in her mission to do the job. Whether I agree with the move she's going to do or not, I don't think she's doing it. I don't think she's doing it for self-promotion or anything else. She doesn't need this job. She doesn't need the money. She's not doing it for that.
So at this point, and I'm just making my observations and also some of his obviously assumptions, because I don't have all the intricate knowledge of Jessica Tish as a leader, what she's actually doing on the inside, right? We're on the outside. We're looking right now from a distance, but we're making an observation of what we see. And I can tell you this. The reason why we have an epic fail from prior leadership when it comes to police commissioners and upper echelon of the police department is because they're self-serving. They're not actually leading with knowledge and power. They're leading in a sense of self-serving. How can they stay in a position to benefit themselves, to get that next promotion, to pave the way for their offspring? That's what they're doing. That's why we have failed prior leadership. Jessica Tisch is in a position where she doesn't need to pave the way for offspring. She doesn't need to be promoted. And her concerns are not financial. Her concerns are political. And she has the backing of the 43rd richest family in the entire country to back her. So that gives her power. That gives her the ability to lead at this point. So has she gotten the full reins? No. I do believe that there's some backdoor agreement with Eric Adams, Jessica Tisch, and her family as far as how she's going to take it. And if Eric Adams needs to stop certain things and put a curb on it, he will. And I think he's done that already. But she's in a position of power because of her financial backing and in a position to play politics, right? She knows the politics. She's been around the politics of this. She said it before. That's her forte. That's her wheelhouse. Policing in itself is not her wheelhouse, but she has people there at the upper echelon to actually guide her, like Chief Kenny. There are people there that actually know what they're doing. They're not good leaders. They're cowards. They don't have any integrity. They don't have any moral principle, but they know police work. So she's able to utilize that, and she's in a position of power, which is why she can lead. And that's where it's beneficial to the police department. And the rank and file may not realize it because right now they're seeing the bumps and bruises, and sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. But ultimately, it is better for them. And I think you and I have really indicated that, and we've explored that and spoke about that. Ultimately, long run, if this does last a long run, it's better for the rank and file. So right now, there will be bumps and bruises because of mistakes of leadership.
So Lizette says, Fleet Services and BMS has a low to MOS in all ranks, should be civilianized. Now, I don't know that that's true at all, unless it's changed since I've been there. When I was there were 4 full-duty cops there. They were highly trained in heating and air conditioning, and they actually saved the city millions and millions of dollars. Every other cop that was there was jammed up. Every other cop in Fleet Services was jammed up. I don't know, really. That's not if 4 MOS is a lot. You had some sergeants. They're in charge of a ton of inventory and millions of dollars in contracts. I don't know. To me personally, I want MOS in there because who cares about your commands and you guys other than MOS? You get some civilians in there that don't count. Good luck when you got a problem. I don't know that, And then Joe Roscoe says, hold up, John. Gun violence suppression was necessary. I personally know one of those transfers, and the person is straight trash. I don't know the people. I didn't say that gun violence suppression division is necessary or not. Eric Adams did. Eric Adams did 3 years ago. He talked about how he was going to staff all these things, and now he's getting rid of them. He talked about how he was going to civilianize all these positions, and then someone even pointed out here what I spoke on earlier, 25 transfers to become a sanitation liaison. The NYPD is a sanitation liaison. Why? Is that ridiculous? You get one person, and that could be just one of their jobs. You could be a sergeant in the chief of the department's office. That he's the assistant ICO and the sanitation liaison. You don't need 25 people to do that job. That's Eric Adams. That's Eric Adams and his brilliant plan to make one solo foot post in transit that lasted a total of 22 hours, not even before someone almost got killed. This dude is a problem. He's the problem. It's not the management. It's the people that he appoints as the management. But yet, what do? We see this one's gone, that one's gone. His entire staff is gone. And now you're going to see all these guys gone too. What do you think about, you're seeing all these transfers at the low levels, right? You're seeing all these detectives get thrown back to the detective squad. You're seeing, which I've never seen before. We saw 10 transfers out of the first deputy police commissioner, the first deputy commissioner's office, right? Tanya Kinsella. I've never seen that before. I've seen people get moved when there's a change in administration and new people come in, right? We've seen that. That's traditional. Have you ever seen 10 people get moved out of the first deputy commissioner's office without being replaced or without a change in transfer? Have you ever seen that? I've never seen that.
In almost 20 years of police, I'd never seen that before. So what does that say? What does that say to me? That speaks volumes to me. It says exactly what we've been thinking. Is that there are a lot of useless spots, and there are people that in spots that are just completely unnecessary, and they're there by nepotism. Is it their fault themselves? No. If they had an opportunity, they took it. But what does it show? If Jessica Tisch is actually in a position that she can make these moves and also not be in a position that the police department is going to take a huge impact from this, and it's going to hurt the flowing impact of the police department and of the correlation with public safety, that's just further proof that these are useless spots and that there's people in spots that are there unnecessarily, and it's complete waste. That's a clear indication of that, because every time you have to make a move, you have to make sure it's calculated properly, because there could be missing links there. So the fact, I mean, we're talking about 10 different positions in a small office, and it's significant. But the importance of that, it shows that, one, she's willing to make moves, but it shows that these moves are not actually making an impact on the everyday workings of the police department. So, again, I think in the long term, this will be better for the cops. But in the short term, things are getting worse. And it should. That usually things do get worse before they get better. But are they going to understand? Unfortunately, their animosity is not going to come towards Eric Adams and the administration, because they're not seeing the big picture. It's going to come to the papers, the media, the journalists, and ultimately it might come to you and myself, because we're actually speaking about it and express about how these moves may be necessary. But it's Eric Adams. Listen to his words, they're clear as day. Eric Adams is saying that cops hide out. It's the most ridiculous thing. And I hope that the cops actually start to open their eyes and see that Eric Adams says one thing, it does something else. And again, for 3 years, this analysis was supposed to happen. And that shows you another epic fail on the leadership of this administration. And I'm not just saying just this administration. Prior administrations also, we have a failure of leadership. It's just far more egregious with this administration because it's been extreme amount of nepotism. The failure of this administration there's many aspects and many facets to it, but ultimately the majority of the failures are because of nepotism with this administration. And the nepotism has equated to corruption. And so when it comes to this leadership, they put these cops in a position where their lives are going to be turned upside down because of their failures. And, I saw someone on here put earlier, Lieutenant Epps is an adult. She knew better. Yeah, we get it. She's an adult, and she should be responsible. But there also has to be balance for the position that she's in. Someone had to police her also, and that's supposed to be Jeffrey managing that off. Say, hey, listen, why do we have to wait until she gets to the point that she has $400,000 to actually put your finger on it? And that's what I'm saying. There's a failure on leadership. Good leaders have their finger on the pulse, and they take preemptive strikes and stop things before they happen. If you see there's something going on, John, you had crime teams, I had crime teams. If you see there's something going on with one of your men or your women, you put a stop to it. You take a stance on it before it gets out of control. Why are we always doing knee-jerk reactions? And this is all the administrations, knee-jerk reactions and analysis after the failures. Why don't we see and make the observations and stop them before we get to that point where it's a complete failure?
Because, Eric, you'd have to care, be competent, want to protect your people. Like, you nip that in the butt right away. Oh, what's going on here? You submitted a lot of overtime last week. What's going on here? I want you to make money, but it's got to be right. Where were you last week? What'd you do? You nipped it in the butt right there. You nip it in the butt right there. You protect your people from themselves. You nipped it in the butt before it became a problem, right? And then that was always my thing as a supervisor. And until today, anyone I ever supervised, even people that I had problems with, they call me. I speak to them. People might say, yeah, that guy's an asshole, but they'll all tell you one thing, that I was a good guy, right? Because I looked out. I cared. Did I do everything perfect? Absolutely not. Did I do things that everybody agreed with? Absolutely not. Right? But I cared. I cared for the overall health of where I worked. I cared to protect my people. I cared to protect myself. I cared to protect the integrity of all of us. right? And that's what you need. You need someone who actually cares. And now this poor woman who's sick, cancer survivor twice, her name's being blasted all over the place, her pictures all over the front thing, and she's under extreme stress right now. And this could have not happened. I get she's a lieutenant. I get you need personal responsibility. I get you're going to say, oh, it's low integrity. I get all those things. But sometimes things happen. Sometimes people go off. Sometimes people make mistakes. You're going to sit here and tell me cops are perfect? No one on this earth has ever been perfect. Jesus was perfect. He's the only person I ever heard of that was perfect, and we crucified him. That is the only person I ever heard of that lived the perfect life. We go off the rails, every single one of us. I've had supervisors that put me in check. I've had subordinates that put me in check. I've had my peers put me in check. And I owe those people a lot of things, and we owe that to each other. And Eric Adams' administration is failing all of you, and they failed Lieutenant Epps, and they failed the entire department. They failed everybody. Now you're the face of it. What are they going to do? They're going to come after all your overtime, and what? You're going to blame Epps, right? When you should be blaming the mayor.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Lizette. Lizette says exactly what I've been sitting here thinking. Lizette said, now the good guy syndrome. Well, we did a prior episode, and we say it's a nice guy syndrome. And here's the problem. A lot of people had texted me, said, oh, why are you attacking this lady? Why are you attacking her right now? She's a cancer survivor, and believe me, my heart is with her. I wish her nothing but good health. It's terrible. But what people are saying is, oh, yeah, let's be nice to her because of her situation. But ultimately, you being nice to her is not being good to her, because being nice to her puts her in this position where she needs to vest early, and she's in a position where she could ultimately be investigated and arrested and charged and ultimately prosecuted because you want to be nice. So there's a difference between being nice and being good. If you want to be good to her, you take care of her. You make sure that she's in good health. She has a good spot. She's in a position where she can make the maximum amount of overtime that without having an appearance of impropriety, without a disregard for moral principle, without disregard for her integrity and the integrity of the police department. Take care of her. There's other ways to take care of her also. Be good, but don't be nice. And again, I blame it on the nice guy syndrome. Everybody wants to be nice. Oh, give it to her. It's okay. And now her name is dragged through the mud. She's smeared, and her name is in the papers for having almost $1 million. She did double an amount of overtime. So being nice to her, is that being good? Again, there's a complete difference. We need to be good, not nice.
No, I agree. And I listen, I don't think we're blasting anyone. We're having the conversation. We're not the ones blasting her everywhere. We're just talking about the failure and whose fault it is. And I'm telling you right now, it's the fault of that dude sitting right there talking about how nobody should be a cop like he was. Because that's ultimately what he's saying. Don't be Eric Adams. Don't be police officer Eric Adams. Because police officer Eric Adams was a master at hiding. That's ultimately what he's saying. Loser. So let's look at another one of his appointments real quick. And then let's get on to the failures in another policy of vehicle pursuits that not only failed civilians on the street, innocent people on the street, but have failed in the rank and file of the New York City Police Department. But most of you are too dumb to realize it. But we'll get into that in a minute. But let's look at one more failure. We appoint a first-grade detective who, by all means, was a sergeant's operator and should have never been a first-grade detective or a third-grade detective. But we can get back on that. But we appoint him to a deputy commissioner of operations. Now, do I think that there are cops out there that could be deputy commissioners and be very successful? I do. Unfortunately, you'll never know their names. They'll be stuck in some little office or somewhere. They'll be the assistant to the CEO, and everybody think, that guy's great. That guy's smart. But you'll never know that person. That person won't get a lick all the time, and it won't matter, right? But we appoint Cass Daughtry. And I said, too, if I got that opportunity, I would do it, too. But he sucks. I'm sorry. He has been horrendous. I don't even think he understands the issues, how they arise. He doesn't address them properly. And here you're at the community council meeting. You're at the community council meeting, and there's a woman talking about the lack of resources in police service areas, in her particular police service area. And she's saying how the cops don't even have vans. They can't get around. They can't get around because they don't have the resources they need. So Eric Adams and Marjorie are addressing her concerns about the lack of resources. And for those of you that don't know what a PSA, police service area, is, that's the housing police. That's what Eric did for the latter part of his career. He worked in housing, right? Assigned to public service housing areas. Police just assigned that. So she's concerned. So Eric Adams and Marjorie are addressing her concerns. And then they ask Kaz and listen to his response.
Okay. Mhm.
Absolutely. Just in terms of, I'm sorry you feel that way. We don't forget about housing. I'm sitting here before the meeting started. I'm sitting here crunching numbers about the new class that's coming out, and of course, graciously, we're going to get extra 1,600 officers in 2025. I can't wait for that because it's going to really help out all of the commands, including PSA 6. We're not going to forget PSA 6. We're going to make sure they get their extra officers as well. I know your CO is right over there, right? So we'll make sure that, Juan, we'll make sure that we are hitting the verticals in the buildings that we need. All right. If you need some help, all right, even on days you're short, you need some help. The precincts, they're supposed to help out too. All right. Precincts help out the PSAs help out the precincts. So if we're short, well, we make sure the commands, respective commands, go over there. The precincts get stop and do a vertical. That's what we do. Our cops on the precincts, they do a vertical in transit. They do a they do a vertical in the development. They do a directed patrol down in transit. This is how we help. This is how we create an atmosphere where people are seeing more cops, all right? Everybody pitches in. Nobody says, I'm the precinct, I'm transit, I'm housing. It's one city. We all chip in. So we'll make sure if we need to increase some of the increase visibility, we'll make sure we do that. In terms of, I just spoke to Kaz. We do have a requisition of new vehicles coming in. Something happened last year. This year we have a requisition of new vehicles, so all the precincts will be seeing getting a little benefit from that.
The reason why you may see I wouldn't say a shortage in vans is that we take the vans and we bring them to a mobilization point on Randall's Island. And what we do is we build mobile field forces, areas that we're seeing a small uptick in crime. We bring officers in from all around the city. They go to Randall's Island, they get put into the vans, and they go to other areas throughout the city for their post for the day. That's why there's a small shortage in some of the commands when you see the vans.
But also, if there's like I said, and Juan, if there's a special need, if the van goes for mobile field,
there's a special need, right? Someone special there.
Tomorrow, reach up to Ruel and that just say we have a special need. We can get vans. We can sometimes, we'll move vans around, right?
Do an analysis of where our vans are, because I don't want the mindset to be, okay, it's housing, we're going to have a lesser amount. She shouldn't be saying she's not having vans. That can't happen, because I see a whole lot of precincts with a lot of vans. So we need whatever we need to do to take that away, to have those vans there. We need to get that done.
I'll take a look at that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And we got.
So how funny is that? He's like, basically, yeah, you know what? You're not going to get any vans because we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, because we're chasing all these cops out and we have a mass exodus. So, you don't have vans because we're stealing your vans. That was our answer. I was like, Marjorie grabs the mic out of his hand, and Adams is like trying to cover up too. Well, we're going to get you what you need. We're going to get you what you need. They're both full of shit, but at least they're smart enough and competent enough to realize that there's a concern, and they're gaslighting this woman. They're actually not going to do anything, but they're going to get through this. They're going to get through this community event without too much pushback. But he can't even do that. He can't even lie to this woman. He's like, no. Oh yeah, no. We steal your vans and we send them out. We rob Peter to pay Paul because we're completely incompetent, and so you're not going to get any resources, and you're losing cops daily because of us. But don't worry about it. Everything's good. Get stuff done.
First of all, before I get to comedy hour, let me just address it. I forgot here. 516 Diecast, coffee and donuts, $1.99 to the podcast. Thank you so much, brother. Retired officer, if I hope I'm saying this right, a fruity Shield 2980, Pres for duty. I think Fruity. If let me know the pronunciation from saying it wrong, brother. Thank you so much. You're always putting your hand in your pocket. I appreciate it. Congratulations to you. Enjoy your retirement. And don't let anybody tell you, go enjoy your life. You can't talk about the police. You can talk about whatever you want. However you decide to enjoy your life, you can say what you want. You can do what you want. It's your life. And you know what? Just keep speaking because it pisses them off. The more they get pissed off, the more I enjoy it. And also, big hit here. Thank you so much, Crazy 107. Coffee and donuts. Here we go. $49.99. Merry Christmas. And happy Hanukkah to you guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'm feeling Jews for Christmas. I got my jiu-jitsu Christmas shirt on. So thank you for shedding light on the rest for all of us who aren't shit to these people. You helped countless get to the finish line. Here's a box of donuts from the crackers whose ass was kicked. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Absolutely. You guys, you're not shit. And that's the reality. First of all, let's get back to this community meeting. It's hysterical, first of all. It's the most ridiculous response by Madry. You have a police service area specifically assigned with federal grants and federal funding to specifically patrol housing developments. Yes, ultimately, the crime numbers for a police service area fall under the precinct. So if anyone here, you're active retired, you understand that for anyone from an outside agency, so how it works in New York City, a police service area is a precinct that patrols a housing location. But ultimately, like for myself, I worked in PSA 7. So that actually covers the confines of the 40 and 42 precinct. So the housing locations in those precincts, their crime numbers get reported to the precincts. We patrol the police service area, but the actual crime numbers go to the precinct. But for him to say, oh, no problem, we'll have the precincts police it, and that's the answer. Again, that's another thing, robbing from Peter to pay Paul. You're short the precincts, but you're going to take the personnel from the precincts to the housing locations. That's your response. That's your response to service the concerns for people in housing. And in housing, it's much different, right? It's not transient like other precincts. This is their backyard. This is where they live. We actually have a police service area assigned. So what you're saying is there's a complete lack of personnel and a lack of attention. We'll have the precinct that's bogged down that they're also shorthanded address the situation. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm sure the lady doesn't know how police work works and the silver linings. So she was able to that's basically they were shutting her up. And then you got to laugh. Kaz Daughtry getting up and standing up. That was the most ridiculous thing, first of all. People don't care. It's not their problem. You have to imagine you're out at a restaurant. John, imagine you're at a restaurant. I think the same thing. You're at a restaurant, you order your food, and it takes 2 hours to get your food. And the waiter comes up and goes, oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. The chef didn't show up today. He wasn't feeling well. So I had to go back there and cook the food. Do you care? Is that your problem? You're the customer. You paid for a service. You'll wait 2 hours. You don't care. It's the same thing when it comes to police work. That lady doesn't care how you get the vans or the vans have to go to another location. That's not her problem. Her problem is she lives in PSA 6. It's completely understaffed. And I know many cops and sergeants and lieutenants that work in that command. I speak to them constantly. And the sergeants and lieutenants are working like cops because it's so understaffed. And that's what they're not telling you. This 1,600 police officers is a Band-Aid, and it's not going to correct the problem that they have. They have a domino effect right now, a mass exodus. This 1,600 police officers that they keep, parading on is not going to fix the problem. Sleepy Joe, 1075, shout out to you, Coffee and Donuts. I appreciate it. Morning, lieutenants. Have Central read out the arrive live message instead of the pre-recorded voice. Maybe then CRT would listen. Oh, man, CRT needs a lot more to listen. We're going to get into that today. Absolutely. But the failure is not just on CRT. The failure is on the leadership of CRT. The CRT guys, they're going out there. They're doing their job to the best of their ability. They're young, impressionable guys, but they're doing it under the behest of failed leadership. But, John, don't you agree? That's not this lady's problem if there's vans there or not, that the vans have to go for a mobile field force. Her problem, she lives in PSA 6.
Yeah, it's sick. Somebody here is asking what a vertical is. Vertical is when a housing cop goes in the projects, walks up and down the staircases, walks across the building, make sure there's no trespassing, drug use in the hallways, any type of crimes being committed. People, and make sure that people that are there should be there. So that's what a vertical is. Latina Brown says, why is Kaz there? But they gave Cancilla the boot. Maya Adams is very much running the NYPD through Jessica Tisch. She's a puppet. NYPD deserves a real leader. Such a shame. A lieutenant stealing from taxpayers without being charged, and Victoria Perry stole from taxpayers too, and she wasn't disciplined. This is disgraceful and disappointing. Let's talk about that real quick. So before we get on to the vehicle pursuits, what do you think that shows about Cancilla's standing in the department? If 10 people are just being removed from her office without being replaced, do you believe that's a sign that Tisch is looking to make changes in the executive ranks? I do hear that there are big changes coming to the executive ranks. I'd be shocked to find out that they were by her hand and they weren't just voluntarily. But what do you think? Like, what do you think about Cancilla's standing in the department as it's seen? 10 people. You're the first deputy commissioner, and your office is getting hit. I mean, I don't know, man. Not a good sign to me.
Well, to me, it's a clear indication of what Jessica Tisch, her impression of Tanya Cancilla as the first deputy commissioner is. To me, immediately, the assumption is that she sees a level of incompetence. Because if this was a competent office, she wouldn't make these moves. That's why I was saying earlier, to actually move 10 people from this office and to not only be under the impression that it's not going to impact the job, the performance of the job, the inner lining workings of the police department, especially One Police Plaza, especially the first deputy commissioner's office, to me, that speaks volumes. And to me, that's an indication she thinks that office and that position is incompetent.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like I said, I don't think it's a good sign. Rob Lukovich says that people also transferred from the PC's office. Yeah, but people also transferred into the PC's office, which is customary, right? Like, those positions are temporary. You come and go with whoever's there. That's customary. That happens. Not where people fly and nobody replaces them. That's a weird sign, and it's not a good sign, you know. And I think, I think it shows that there's some type of rift there with Tisch and Cancilla, 100%. Whether Cancilla is going to be moved or not, remains to be seen. I don't know, but it's not a good sign. We heard rumors that Tariq Shepard is no longer the Deputy Commissioner of Public Information. Don't know how true that is. I've been seeing him. Where does he go? Does he go back to a 1-star? Is he a 3-star? I don't know. Rumors about Kaz Daughtry, rumors about Shalin Madry leaving. You know, they're on their way out, right? They'll both get 3/4, you know, like everybody knows, you know. What they'll do, I don't think it matters because their pensions are so large. I think they should go live their lives and stop working because they're not in the best health. I think, you know, and they're old enough now, they should enjoy their lives, or, you know, come out here in the media field. You know, maybe they could it could come on the Finest Unfiltered channel. Come on, they could tell you the get stuff down, crimes down bullshit that they've been pushing for the last years.
So I think Latina makes a great point. Latina, good morning, by the way. Shout out to you. Great friend to the podcast here. So Latina says, it's no secret that the two women do not see eye to eye. The first deputy is ineffective. It's come from the top. Jessica is not running the show. Community affairs needs to be dismantled. Too much corruption, allegedly. I'm glad you used the word allegedly. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Listen, it's obvious. It's obvious what Jessica Tisch's impression of first dep, Tanya Cancilla. I think that the impression is incompetence. If there is some other kind of rift there, not to my knowledge, I don't know about. But yeah, absolutely. Community affairs needs to be completely dismantled. I agree. Shout out to you for that. Absolutely too much corruption, which is why the upper echelon needs to be completely swept, infected, compromised, everyone. And that's why we can't have effective leadership. We can't have effective leadership because everyone at the top of the upper echelon is concerned with themselves. It's a lot of third-person talk there. They're self-serving, and they have to pave the way for their offspring. Again, we haven't had one person speak out. Not one person. The only white male that I've seen so far. There's some cops there that have given us a lot of opposition for speaking our minds because they're in alignment with the upper echelon, with this administration, because they've been thinking about themselves. They haven't been thinking about the general population rank and file that has been mistreated and abused on this job right now. There's a lot of self-serving people at the top. So do I feel bad for every one of them? No, I don't.
Look, I don't feel bad for anybody. It is what it is, you know. Nobody felt bad for me. I don't feel bad for you. It is what it is, you know. I just, you know, it is what it is. Like, nobody felt bad for you. Nobody felt bad for Sal Greco. Everybody's got shit to say. Everybody's, you know, most people are self-serving, but you know, I got a heart, and I'm like, whatever, you know, it's fucked up. Oh, excuse me, it's messed up, you know. But do I ultimately care? Am I going to think about it at night? No. But am I celebrating it at the same time? No. I think it just shows like it should never happen. None of these things should happen. I mean, we've had systems in place for the police department for 20 years that were working very properly and very smoothly. And for some reason, none of them appear to be working. I wonder why. Not one function in the New York City Police Department, including integrity control, locally or from the Internal Affairs Bureau, is working any longer. Right? I mean, we're seeing how many cops that got called this past week. The hiring's out the window. The integrity controls out the window. The uniform presence out the window. The appearance of cops out the window. Everything is gone. Response times, the way you're transferred, everything's gone. Everything's gone. So let's switch topics because I think Mikey G summed it up. He said you guys could just sum it up. The NYPD is a shit show. I'm going to sum it up better. Eric Adams NYPD is a shit show. They should. The whole thing needs to be revamped. Like we've been saying from the top, the upper echelon of the NYPD needs to be removed. Eric Adams cannot be controlling this police department. This is what Eric Adams Police Department looks like. This is what Eric Adams Department of Corrections looks like. This is what his sanitation department looks like. This is what every agency in New York City under Eric Adams looks like. This is what they look like. They're a disaster. They're all caving in on themselves. The wheels are coming off on all these agencies. And now he just put the fake conservative Jimmy Otto, still has me blocked on X for what reason, I don't know. He used to be the borough president of Staten Island. I thought he was a nice guy. I didn't realize he was a phony. But he used to be a conservative. He was a Republican, still a member of the Staten Island GOP. But he just got tapped as the sanitation department commissioner. So who knows? He'll probably be getting indicted at some point too. So this is article comes out from the city. It's about NYPD. Nearly one vehicle accident a day is stemming from these pursuits. Innocent people have died as a result of these vehicle pursuits. Reporter Katie Honan asks Eric Adams about the vehicle pursuits. Let's listen to Eric Adams' response.
I do. Go ahead, Kate. Mayor Adams, since you've become mayor, the uptick in deadly police chases, it's increased exponentially. 13 New Yorkers have been killed or sustained serious injuries that eventually killed them in the course of police pursuits. I've asked you about this before, but they continue to be deadly. You know, you are so concerned about the safety of New Yorkers. Do you think this is just sort of what happens in the role of policing, that you could just be, you know, get caught up in a deadly police chase? And do you think that there should be some changes to the way that the NYPD is issuing and allowing these police chases because so many New Yorkers have been killed because of it under your term as mayor?
Yeah, and under our term as mayor, my term as mayor, we made a complete shift to stop letting dangerous, bad people think they can commit an act, shoot someone, commit a violent crime, and just flee. And we have used a great deal of caution, a great deal of training. We have the supervisor that's on the ground make the determination to call off a chase or not. But let's be clear, we have far too many people who are extremely dangerous that have become comfortable that if they flee the police, it has become a culture. You flee the police, you add it with the fact that you have a ghost vehicle where your plates are not really your plates. You add it with the fact that in many cases we're finding guns in the cars, and some of these people are pattern criminals that have created many crimes that's connected to a pattern. So the officers I've been instructed, look at weather conditions, look at the density of the population, and make that determination should they pursue or continue. And it's monitored. You know, the supervisors are on the ground. I want to empower them to continue to make that call should they terminate a pursuit or if they shouldn't terminate a pursuit. And so we are proactive. Everything from removing the 70,000 ghost vehicles. These were ignored. We created a culture in this city where law enforcement was a mockery and any and everything goes. And I just refuse to allow that to continue. And we don't want one life lost. But it's not being lost because the police are saying, well, we want to go chase someone. It's being lost because a bad person decides they're going to flee the police and have a total disregard of the safety of the people that's here.
Do you think minor burglaries or some of these are traffic infractions, do you think that's a justifiable police chase? And I know there was a memo released in August, the police, the precincts to no longer do this, but they continue. So I don't know, I guess
I'm sorry,
they continued. Obviously, there's continued to be an uptick in these, even though there was an issue for Madrid to stop them.
It's very clear that that supervisor on the scene should make that determination should the pursuit terminate. For me to stay here in the sterilized environment of City Hall and say you should never do a pursuit or you should never pursue someone, that is not good public safety. That supervisor that's on the ground, he's doing an assessment. What are the weather conditions? What is it? What are the density? What is the person wanted for? They can make that call, and I trust my supervisors that are on the ground.
Morgan?
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
How are you?
So what do you think about Adams' response?
That is the most irresponsible statement we've ever heard from a New York City mayor addressing public safety. For one, his statement harms the members of the police department, especially in this climate, in this environment right now. I'm traveling throughout the entire country. And right now, I've learned through this network that we've built, John, you and I have met cops throughout the entire country. We got a relationship. And in cities and towns and states that are far more conservative than New York City, we see cops getting persecuted, prosecuted, and they're spending 25 years in life in jail for doing a vehicle pursuit in locations that are not as metropolis as New York City. So we talk about the density of New York City and making those analysis and those evaluations about when is the time to pursue. And there are times, but those times are few and far from actually doing a pursuit. In most cases, the responses do not do it. And there has to be other ways to skin a cat. There's other reasons and other factors that he has not addressed why people are taking off from the police, why they're being evasive. Eric Adams is not calling out the legislation of New York City. He's not calling out fellow politicians. He's not calling out Kathy Hochul on the New York State level that has created legislation that has enabled and empowered perpetrators, persons of interest, violent thugs of New York City to take off from the police. But the response of the police was supposed to be far different from what we see now. The upper echelon was supposed to show up at every meeting possible and support the police department by saying, we support our rank and file, we support public safety, but we're not going to put our police officers in a predicament where they're going to lose their financial freedom, their actual freedom, and potentially lose their own lives. And we're not going to use a crime strategy that has always been frowned upon because the totality of circumstances is that there's more impact and it's more likely that we would take the lives of someone innocent than actually take the lives of that actual perpetrator. And that's what's happening. We just heard right now that there was 13 losses of life. That's more than one life a month. That is insane. It was never a crime strategy that was utilized by the police department. It's frowned upon. But again, for my police officers out there, especially in the NYPD, make sure that you have this recording because God forbid you're in a position and your freedom is on the line, not only financially, but your actual freedom, and you're facing a life behind bars. Remember, he says the supervisor's responsibility. He says the supervisor's responsibility to make that determination. Eric Adams has wiped his hands and said it's your responsibility to the boots on the ground. John Schell has perpetuated this as a crime strategy. No longer, because he's getting fed this information by Eric Adams, putting our police officers, our rank and file, in a position where they're going to face potential prosecution. And ultimately, it shouldn't be used as a crime strategy. It's just wrong. Because God forbid you don't get that perpetrator and you mow down a 5-year-old kid. Well, guess what? You have to live with that. So ultimately, if we're putting people in danger, innocent people, to make an arrest that's not going to be charged anyway. How is that beneficial as we tip the scales with public safety? It's not. This is a failed statement. This is irresponsible. And this will have police officers losing their freedom, and will have bystanders, innocent people, losing their lives. Irresponsible. This is a complete failure. Eric Adams is a joke.
So we've spoken about it before. Vehicle pursuits should only be done as a last resort in extreme grave circumstances, right? Someone actively shooting out the window, kidnapping, terrorist attack, extreme situations, right? Extreme situations is the only time a vehicle pursuit should be done. As per the patrol guide, that's basically what it tells you, because it's so ambiguous that it's every line is that you shouldn't do it. Take the factor of the day, take the weather, take the density, take the vehicle you're operating, right? All those things, all those factors you need to take into concern. Take the totality of the circumstances into effect. And does the risk to the public outweigh the crime that's being committed? And almost 99.9% of the times, it won't. The risk to the public will be greater, so you will terminate that pursuit. And that's how the NYPD operated forever, even at the height of broken windows. Never a policing strategy ever until John Shell. We ain't having it no more. And everybody loved it. Oh, yeah, we're back. We're back. You're back? Why are all the cops leaving? You guys left? You guys that did 25 years, or made sure you got the 30 a month before you left, or made sure you got down to the penny and the nickel to when you were going to retire? We're back? Really? Because I see lieutenants vesting out. I see inspectors vesting out. I see people retiring early. I see cops resigning without even getting a pension at a rate we've never seen before. We ain't back. We were never back. You don't even know what this department is anymore. But everybody cheered it on. Yeah, John Shell, we're back. This is great policing. And we came out here and we said, this is stupid. I don't even give a shit about the cops. I'll be honest with you. I don't even care. You're gonna listen to these idiots. You get everything you deserve. What my concern is that my family doesn't get run over by some idiot rookie cop who doesn't know better, who's being led by moron who shouldn't be in the position he's in, that aren't following procedure that we've had in place for 20 years. They're not even following the procedure. And then they're getting killed because we're stopping someone because they had a ghost plate, and they're running because the DA doesn't charge them. And even when they get found and stopped, the DA still not charging them. Even after the pursuit, he's still not getting charged. So I don't even give a shit. You want to be a young cop, you want to be smart, you want to be a lieutenant, you want to be in CRT, you want to be in all these units. I honestly don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't want my niece getting run over. I don't want my friends getting run over. I don't want my family getting run over. That's not a hard ask. It's really not a hard ask. It's not a hard ask. It's not. And Eric Adams deflected this onto these extreme violent situations, which are the rarity of these police chases. Am I sitting here and saying that every police chase wasn't warranted? No. But I'm telling you that the overwhelming majority of them were not. That's what I'm saying. And the fact and the data will prove what I'm saying is right. And everyone knows what I'm saying is right. Right? And that's the thing. He's talking about, well, I'm never going to tell the cops to never chase. And I'm not saying that either. I'm saying chase when you need to chase. And 99% of the times, you don't need to chase. And that's what we're missing here. I mean, so if you look at the chart on the screen, if you see the yellow, that's the amount of accidents since the day of police accidents stemming from vehicle pursuits. From the day Eric Adams took office, you see a spike when he appoints John Shell to the chief of patrol, because don't get it twisted. He appointed John Shell to the chief of patrol. Don't get it twisted. Ki Chan Sewell did not appoint. Eric Adams did. And then you see the even larger spike when Jeffrey Madry becomes the chief of department. And what happens in that time frame? John Shell says, we ain't having it anymore. All the retired guys who have no idea what the police department's been going through this last decade or how it is to police in the current state of policing, it's a totally different job from when you guys were cops. Totally different. And even if you have been in the squad for 20 years, you don't know what those patrol officers are going through. It's a totally different job than it was a decade ago. It's not even recognizable. It's not even recognizable to even when me and Eric came out in 2004. It's totally unrecognizable. Totally unrecognizable job. So they start doing that pursuit. Everybody's cheering. Yeah. We're back. We could be the police again. Blah, 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 blah. Even though no law changed, no one in city council changed. And Eric Adams, the one who wanted to defund you, is your mayor. Okay, you're back. What happens? So they're all back. Vehicle pursuits are rising. What does Jeffrey Madry do? He puts a memo out with the patrol guide order, which is basically telling you to never chase. Because he's covering his ass and John Shell's covering his ass. And you guys are going to be left to hang. And guess what? Innocent people are going to die. And this chart is showing you.
That's why I said on this episode, excuse me, when I was talking about vehicle pursuits, I said it's always been frowned upon. This has been a crime strategy that has always been frowned upon, even when the police department was at the height of stardom. In post 9/11, when cops were considered heroes, and they got they were cheered on like they've never been cheered on before. We've never seen such support like that. That was not a crime strategy that was supported then. And again, I agree. Don't box yourself in. Never box yourself into a statement. And we're saying the same thing. There are times for a vehicle pursuit, but they're far few in between. They're rare that it's necessary. And what did I say on this episode when I talked about vehicle pursuits? In most cases, in the pursuits that they're actually involved in, if they actually apprehend the vehicle operator / perpetrator, that perpetrator is not even charged. And if they are charged, that charge is diminished. It's a lower charge, especially in Alvin Bragg's office. And because of bail reform, they're out the next day. So potentially you could be involved in another vehicle pursuit. So they're not actually getting charged. They're not getting indicted. They're not actually facing the arm of justice. And the only one that's going to face the arm of justice is the police officer getting involved in these chases. But listen, John, both you and myself, we're constantly in conversation with cops. I have a lot of friends on the job that are sergeants, lieutenants, captains. And you know what I hear from them? I hear from them that they're actually timid to actually call off these pursuits, because if they call off a pursuit, that John Shell is going to meet their wrath. That John Shell is going to get mad because they call off a pursuit. So they're being put in these precarious positions, and they're all vulnerable right now to get into positions where they actually could take someone's life because they're afraid that John Shell is going to get mad. You're afraid that fat triple neck is going to put yourself in a position where that you could lose your life. Absolutely, you have to be a lot smarter than that. You can't take part in these vehicle chases on a constant basis. And I feel sad for these guys in CRT, the citywide response team. Some of these guys in khaki pants, they're young on the job. They found an avenue to do intrusive police work. They want to do real police work, but they're misguided. They have failed leadership, and they're going to face that. And for some of them, not all of them, the animosity will not be towards John Shell, but it will be towards you and myself. Because John Shell is going to tell them, don't listen to those guys. I don't know what they're talking about. And we're telling you right now, look at the articles. There are police officers throughout the entire country right now, and they're being prosecuted 25 years to life for having bad judgment and good initiative, wanting to get the bad guy, get involved in a pursuit, and someone loses their life. And ultimately, who loses your life? Lives are forever altered. An innocent person loses their life, and you find yourself behind bars. So there's 2 lives lost. And again, if someone is going to mow down 20, 30 people, some type of terrorist attack, or someone's actively shooting and they're going to take out so many lives and you have to stop them, or there's an active kidnapping, you witnessed it right in front of your face. But these are rare occurrences. In most cases, I would say for the most part, and I don't have the data, but I'm going on my anecdotal experience, I would assume that most of the police officers that are involved in these chases have not even determined what crime has actually been committed. They're at a level of suspicion, right? Or they made an observation, or they're trying to make an actual stop based on a traffic infraction, or there's some type of reasonable suspicion on the operator and the car itself, and they haven't made a full determination and haven't sought out probable cause yet, and they're actually in pursuit. So you have to ask yourself, how is this going to look? Because right now it's not necessarily about right and wrong. It's about optics. How is this going to look? Because Eric Adams has went by optics before and suspended police officers and not supported them because it didn't look good. So if you take off into a pursuit and you don't have all the indicators of what's going on with that actual perpetrator and someone loses their life, well, he's going to say that doesn't look good either. So again, and he's going to say that the responsibilities are the supervisors, the boots on the ground. So if you're worried about John Shell, you need to worry about losing your own life.
Yeah. Worry about that. All right. So more than a crash a day as NYPD keeps pedal to the metal on car chases. Police car chases and crashes spiked after Eric Adams promoted 2 allies to leadership in his role in the NYPD. The number of car crashes following police chases has skyrocketed under Mayor Eric Adams, with more than 1 collision per day recorded on an average this year, according to analysis of NYPD data by the city. In the first 11 months of 2024, an unprecedented 398 vehicle crashes were preceded by police pursuits, resulting in at least 315 people injured, up 47% from the 215 people injured over the same period last year, according to the motor vehicle collision data made public by the department. Before I even go further, 398 vehicle crashes. So that's 398 department vehicles damaged. That's 398 civilians damaged, vehicles damaged, and at least 315 people injured. How much money did that cost New York City taxpayers? If you had to estimate, you had to just take an estimate. What do you think? What do you think? How much money does that cost New York City?
We're in the millions. We're in the millions. No doubt about it. Absolutely. Again, we talked about, listen, because we're being compassionate. We're compassionate. That's why we're cops. We care about people. If you're out there involved in these vehicle pursuits and they're unnecessary pursuits and you could potentially lose lives. But now we'll talk about the other aspect here is the dollar amount that you're costing the taxpayer, costing the city. We're talking about the millions, John. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, we're in the millions just on the vehicle damage. We're in the millions just at the vehicle damage. Like we're like probably vehicle damage, 398 vehicles. We're probably roughly 2-3 million right there. You're repairing 398 vehicles. You got to be. You might even be higher than that in the millions. I mean, when you start to add in the people injured. 315 people injured. I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. This is going to ultimately cost New York City hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions. How many people do you think are going to go to jail as a result of these vehicle pursuits? There are 398 vehicle crashes preceded police pursuits. How many people? Let's just pretend that 398 of those vehicle crashes actually were with the perpetrator involved. And we apprehended him. How many people do you think are going to go to jail out of that 398? Let's pretend that's the case. It's probably not the case because they probably didn't even get everybody. Most of those were probably civilian vehicles. But let's pretend that's the case. How many of those 398 people from those pursuits probably going to go to jail, you think?
I don't know. Listen, we don't have the data. I'm watching it all over the country. I see guys facing prosecution. Right now with this administration, obviously they have clearly that they have a connection with Alvin Bragg and the other DA's offices right now when it comes to this. But when this administration leaves, that's where they're going to face the arm of justice. So I would say at least 5%. So 398, I would say 5% would be about 20. I would say about 20 cops.
No, I'm not asking that. I'm asking how many of the perpetrators?
Oh, I thought you were asking how many cops do I think will be facing the arm of justice. Oh, how many perpetrators out of 398?
Yeah. How many perpetrators are going to be facing jail time?
Again, I'll say 5%. I'll say actually out of those 398 car crashes, 20.
Yeah, absolutely.
If at most. I thought you were asking about the cops themselves.
No, the cops are already screwed. I mean, they have civil liability up the ass. They have complaints. Some of them will be probably about 20% will be reviewed for criminally. Yeah, no, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about because ultimately, like, unless it's a severe death, I don't think that you're going to be probed as a cop. I think that the greater danger comes to the public. I think the greater danger all around is to the public. But, I think cops will get jammed up. Young cops will have their career destroyed. Older cops will have their career destroyed. Absolutely. But I'm talking about this is a public safety. This is a public safety plan, right? This is what John Shell instituted as a public safety plan to bring crime down, right? So we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars. We're getting into all these accidents. We're playing cops and robbers all across New York City in a city of, I don't say 8 million no more. I'll say 12, 13 million. That's completely dense that you can't even move in. And we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars. And what are we getting at the end of it? How many perpetrators that are violating the law are you actually getting off the street as a result of this?
You know what, John? I think Crowley's comment is spot on. The perps aren't doing a day in prison for fleeing. And I think that's a great point. So, excuse me, even if 20 perpetrators out of those 398 face the arm of justice, I would say 0 are actually getting a charge for actually evading and fleeing from the police. I would say 0 out of all these charges are actually facing the arm of justice for fleeing the police.
Yeah. King Giro does the math for us. 398 vehicle crashes, just roughly $50,000 each, right? $19,900,000. So $20 million just in vehicles. $20 million just in vehicles, just in vehicle damage. Crazy. Absolute insanity. Like, this is the stupidest. I mean, obviously, this is stupid. This is obviously ineffective, and it's dumb, and it makes no sense. But that's what happens when you take dumb, ineffective morons and you place them in charge of positions in the NYPD when they don't even have business wearing a badge or a gun because they've proven themselves throughout their career to have zero integrity and be a danger to the public. Who am I talking about? Every single one of them.
No, I think that's a great point, right? You have to weigh out how effective a crime strategy is, how effective when it comes to cost and when it comes to potential loss of life, right? So the most important thing, the mission of the police department has to be to preserve life. But just putting that aside, put aside if there were no issues and potential loss of life, if we just look at this from a financial aspect, this is an epic failure. Based on those numbers you just put out, I was doing numbers myself. And I was actually doing it on 25,000, but I think you're actually right. I would say it's probably 50,000 because most of these cars are probably getting totaled. And the police department always pays more when it comes to these cars. So if we just look at this from a financial aspect, Eric Adams is bringing this city to a financial crisis, bring it to the brink of disaster. You have an issue with a migrant crisis right now, which is costing the city millions. And this tool by the police department is costing the city in the millions again. So overtime and these other issues and other funding of the police get impacted because of a failure of a crime strategy that does not even lead to the actual prosecution of the perpetrators involved. And that's why I think it was Crowley, right? Spot on. How many of those 398, John, would you say, since we're talking about numbers here, how many of those 398, forget about other charges. Let's say you have a perpetrator in possession of an illegal firearm, your CRT, you try to apprehend this perpetrator, and they flee the scene. And you have to Is that perpetrator actually getting charged with evading the police? I would say no. They're getting charged with a firearm, but there's no consequence for fleeing the police. What do you make? What are the odds on that? What is your perspective on that?
Same thing. 20 people. Doesn't make sense. They're not, even if they're getting charged with every crime they've committed, if they've even committed a crime other than fleeing the police, for like some nonsensical VTL thing, even if they got that, 20 people will face a consequence. 20 people actually get charged. It is the stupidest thing, and has done zero to bring down crime. Actually, what it's done is give the perception that the city is completely out of control. I mean, I watch these vehicle pursuits I get videos and videos and videos every day. I can't even put them out. I can't even tweet. I'd be on my phone all day tweeting and Instagramming if I put out all the videos that I got of these dumb vehicle pursuits, all this dumb things that's going on. This is dumb. Let's go a little further in the article. The new findings follow the city's reporting last year of the unparalleled number of car pursuits, a record that is on track to be broken this year. The nearly 400 crashes through the end of November this year, an average of more than 9 a week, is an increase of 47% from the then record 270 crashes over the same period last year, and vastly up from an average of just 84 crashes a year under the previous mayoral administration. The NYPD, guess what? They did not respond to the city's request for comment. A shocker. That's horrifying. Alexa Sledge, a spokesperson for traffic safety advocacy nonprofit Transportation Alternative, said, when the city shared its findings, when so many think of police activities and police chases, people think about officers doing that to keep New Yorkers safe. But at the end of the day, nothing can really keep us safe if it's leading to completely preventable losses and crashes and serious injuries. And then again, here's that same chart that we showed. You see it right here. Vehicle pursuits are all the way on the floor. Here they come all the way up. Look how high they are. Spiking. Insane. While the death count in the NYPD's public collision data lists none, disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. The death count, and let me say that again. The death count in the NYPD's public collision data lists none since 2014. Absolutely disgusting. Lying to you every single day. City's completely corrupted, not transparent, as a disgrace to everybody that lost their life. A review of the media reports over the past 2 years show at least 13 people were killed or sustained serious injury. And I'm telling you right now, it's way higher than that. That is disgusting. That is absolutely disgusting. That eventually killed them over the course of police crews, including 7 so far this year, most often by the fleeing driver. In May, for example, a driver fleeing from the NYPD in Bushwick slammed onto a Honda Pilot, sending a 29-year-old passenger into the back seat. Micah Dukes flying to the hospital in critical condition. Dukes died from those injuries about a week later. Last December, Tiana Rodriguez, a 21-year-old passenger of a Lamborghini, fleeing from the police for a red light violation, was also killed after the car struck a pillar supporting an above-ground train track platform in Inwood. Neither incident was documented in public NYPD data on crashes after police pursuits. A former NYPD official who has no balls because he won't give his name, I know who you are, not because anybody told me, but I know. I see things. With the knowledge of the data, said the mismatch can be largely attributed to the discrepancies between internal data and what's made publicly available. Internally, they would update the crash count to register a fatality or an injury, the former official said. So that just means they're probably updating the open data feed. Sledge noted these inconsistencies and inaccuracies often make policy reform for people like herself more challenging, and that advocates like herself had to compile their own databases to better understand the consequences of these police pursuits. It's completely unfair and unacceptable. The number of chases began spiking in 2022. John Shell was promoted to Chief of Patrol and Marjorie Chief of Department, while crash numbers have begun to drop since June and chase numbers in January. So far, they've remained overall up from the same periods last year. People think they can take off on us. Those days are over, Shell declared last July, responding to reporting by the city, showing the 625 chases in the 6 months of that year exceeded the count for the previous 5 years combined. In an internal memo in late August, Chief of Department Marjorie, the department's top uniformed cop, reiterated department policy that a vehicle pursuit must be terminated whenever the risks to the member of the service and the public outweigh the danger to the community if the suspect is not immediately apprehended. The number of crashes peaked at a record 53 this June. To put that in perspective, there were never more than 11 crashes a month between 2017 and 2021. The rank incompetence. You can't call internal affairs for that, said former NYPD official of what they called the current leadership reckless approach. The pursuits are a great example. It's a terrible policy decision that's going to kill people, but it's not illegal. And I'm too scared to give my name.
You know what this makes me think also, all kidding aside? With the amount of crashes that these guys are involved in, who's going to be left to actually drive out there and do police work? Because I guess that maybe they changed the unwritten policy, but back when I was working, same thing with you, John, if you were involved in an accident, you were grounded. You were grounded. In most cases, they would find you at fault. Even if you really weren't at fault, they would say, you're the professional.
Yeah.
You have the, right? You have the
At a
police-
red light, it's your fault. Like, okay.
It's your fault, right? They would ultimately say,
I'm
even if
sitting
you're
there,
going to a
okay.
911 call, you're in the marked car or you're in the unmarked car, you have the lights, you're the professional, you're the one who's supposed to make sure that the public is safe. So who's going to be left driving if everybody's grounded? I mean, unless they change the policy with all these vehicle pursuits, obviously the men and women can't be grounded for actually taking part in these actions. And you know what? And I get it. There are times where police officers are not at fault and they're grounded anyway. And back then, I would find fault with some of that. But looking at it, I get it. I understand it because it's the same. It's just to really input it in your mind to have further caution. Because behind the wheel, the bottom line is a car is meant for transportation, but it could also be utilized as a weapon if used improperly. Same thing as you have your firearm. And I think really when it comes down to it, when we say the totality of the circumstances, it has to, the actual mission, the actual pursuit has to outweigh the risk to the public. And pretty much the risk to the public outweighs that pursuit. And there's some rare exceptions. And those exceptions are a case-by-case basis. And it's extremely subjective. It's extremely subjective of when it outweighs the risk to the public. And it has to be something that's in real time, that has to be so severe that the average layman person say, wow, I get it. I get it. Because ultimately, and that's my message to the cops, if you're involved in one of these incidents, and I say this all the time, the upper echelon and even your commanding officers, they're guests on this job. You're a permanent resident. Because when your commanding officer leaves and they go on to different pastures in their career, or John Shell leaves, he goes 3 quarters and he's working and he's on the nipple with Dr. Phil, they're going to forget all about you. And you're going to be on your own. So when you're involved in an investigation, it's almost like when you go to your funeral. You die alone. You go by yourself. It's the same thing. They're going to be gone. They're not going to be standing up for you saying, well, you know what? This was our message. We support them. You're going to be on your own. The bars are going to be there. You're going to be behind bars and saying, what happened? What happened? And everyone's going to turn their back on you. And unfortunately, it's the cops also. They turn their back on you also because they have to keep moving and they have short-term memories. And somehow they justify the position that you're in. Same thing we see with Sergeant Duran. We've heard cops justify, oh, but he threw a cooler. So if anybody's aware of the situation, if you're an outside agency, we had a sergeant involved in a narcotics operation. They're in pursuit of a perpetrator, and he utilized a cooler to throw it at the perpetrator to stop him from fleeing. And ultimately, that perpetrator met his tragic demise. Is it tragic? Are we trained to use coolers? No, but we are trained to be critical thinkers, overcome, adapt, and utilize the tools and resources around you. And no one stood up. John Shell did not stand up for that sergeant. I didn't hear any cop stand up, and that sergeant is on his own and facing prosecution, potential prosecution, facing financial freedom because he thought outside the box. And other people justified, oh, he threw a cooler. Would it make a difference if he didn't throw a cooler, still pursued the perpetrator, and the perpetrator met his tragic demise? Why does that cooler make a difference in that scenario?
I don't know, bro. I honestly don't know. People are just too dumb. Listen, all I got to tell you is to do whatever you guys want. Go pursue the vehicles. You want to step on people's heads after, go ahead, do it. I mean, I'm going to be the one advocating to get you guys locked up. I'm just going to let you know right off the bat. You know, Croita says, to be fair, Lieutenant Tampan's situation, the only thing that anyone knows about that incident is that he kicked the perp in the head, in the face. Not that the perp could have killed people when fleeing. You know, and I think it's a good point to bring up, right? Because who's at fault? Is it the guy fleeing or is it the cops? Right? Who's at fault? Another one. Minor traffic incident. Fleeing the cops. Ends in a crash as usual. Lieutenant, who's supposed to have experience and supposed to be able to ascertain situation, completely loses his cool. Cold clocks a kid with his hands in the air, knocks him out. As the kid's convulsing on the ground and two cops are on top of him, he curb stomps him. Well, he doesn't curb stomp him, but he steps on his head. So he stomps his head while he's already having a convulsion and two cops are on top of him. Nobody knows about that incident. Everybody knows about Juan Perez getting indicted after a perp choked him, put him in a chokehold, choked him, and he fought back. Everybody knows that incident, right? Everybody knows about the incident that happened in the Apple store when the cop pushed a guy that was attacking him, that he was indicted. Nobody knows that story. Only you guys know that story. That lieutenant's back working on the streets. You want that guy policing you? You want him policing your kids? I don't want him policing my kids. I don't want him policing me. Drink a beer and don't give the guy your ID right away. And then when he kicks your ass, that's all we know about the story. That's all we know about the story. Nobody cares if the guy was drinking the beer. He was violating the law. Am I equating vehicle pursuits to drinking beer? No, I'm not. Vehicle pursuits should never be done. Ultimately, people should be held responsible for their actions. It takes two to tango. Crash would have never happened if we followed policy. Thankfully, nobody was killed. Thankfully, the perp wasn't killed. Right? Because the lieutenant almost killed him. Serious physical injury. Nothing happened. Disgusting. Absolutely. That's not the type of policing I want to see on my street. Sorry. That's not. If I was the police commissioner, I would have fired him. Instead, they buried it. They called their buddy Bragg and didn't get him indicted. But yet they're indicting cops who are fighting for their lives out in the street.
John, I always say there's a fine line. I would teach my cops. There's a dichotomy between aggressive control and being out of control. And I see what Crowley is saying, right? I get it. You say, let's be fair to this lieutenant. He stopped someone that potentially could have cost lives. And yes, there was a component to that. They did their job. They made the apprehension. But there was a point in that where it wasn't aggressive control. It was out of control. And every time you deploy a strike or use force, it has to have significance and importance. And I can tell you this, the most complained cop, I deployed strikes. I deployed kicks. But they had significance and purpose. And in my career, I'd never stomped someone on their head because it's not necessary. There's no significance. There's no importance. And there's no time that it's a necessary use of force to stomp on someone's head. Absolutely not. And particularly in that particular situation, which was on video, you can clearly see that perpetrator was already in custody and under control. So that was out of control, unnecessary, because he's devious. There's something going on in his mind. He definitely has a problem. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a failure with the leadership, but he's never been stopped in his career. He's out of control. It's completely reckless. I get it. He did a good job for the most part. but that was completely unnecessary. And it's not something I would do. And I don't think it's ever necessary. I never found a time in my career that I should stomp on someone's head. And neither should you, and I never did. And I deployed strikes in the face. I've kicked perpetrators. I did what I had to do to get them under control, to stop them from hurting myself, stop them from punching another cop. But to stomp someone on the head, that's not cool.
Yeah, sorry. So if it's if that's the type of policing you want, cheer for it. That's not me. I'll tell you right now, if I was the police commissioner, if I was the mayor, I'd be calling for him to be indicted. I'd be calling for him to be fired. Not Juan Perez. Sorry, there's standards. And then if Juan Perez did something wrong, how didn't he do anything wrong? Right? None of it makes sense. It just doesn't make sense. So I whatever. It's a terrible, terrible policy. Needs to be done. I mean, this is the third episode we've done about vehicle pursuits, and you morons are going to keep going out there and pursuing vehicles. And honestly, I don't care anymore. I don't care. But I'm not like when you call us. Oh yeah, nobody's helping me. John Shell's on. He's on Dr. Phil now, and he won't help me. He won't tell my story. I was just doing my job. The mayor's making me out to be a bad guy. Come on, you can tell your story, but we're going to replay this part when we said you're a moron if you listen to these idiots, and they're going to turn their back on you. So, crazy stuff, man. Anything else on the vehicle pursuits you got?
No, but I think it's important to reflect on what you said. There's absolutely no standard. Juan Perez should have never faced a courtroom. Juan Perez's case should be so significant in comparison to this lieutenant and other cases that we have. And it's an epic failure that the union has not made this even more public. You know, I don't want to see anyone go to jail, and even this lieutenant, but I want people to be accountable and responsible for themselves. We need good police work. We need good police work out there. We need smart police work out there. We need police work that has significance and importance. Juan Perez was summoned to a 911 call. He did his job. He overcame resistance from an emotionally disturbed perpetrator that was trying to choke him out. And Juan Perez was convicted. And thank God he didn't serve time in jail. But to stain on his record forever. And even if it gets expunged, it doesn't matter. He had to go through that and face that trauma for doing his job. Meanwhile, this lieutenant is out of control, irresponsible, and he's in a position of leadership that young, impressionable cops look to him as a mentor and an idol. And this is their representation, and this is what they get for their own careers. And this is what they think is appropriate. It's mismanagement. It's failed leadership. He should not be in that position at all. And not only that, it further reflects the personality that he has, that the way he interacts on social media, the attacks that we received on this podcast from this particular lieutenant. That's not why we're saying this, but we wanted to give a fair assessment. Even with that being said, we would give a fair assessment. He's out there. Yes, he's doing police work, but stomping someone on the head is absolutely egregious and ridiculous, and I would not do it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I'm not defending that kid. I'm not sticking up for that kid. I think it's horrible. I think he's had a horrible career. He should never have even been in the position he has. And you could just ask anybody that's ever worked with him. So, and that's it. He's got real issues, the kid. A lot of different issues. So this video comes out yesterday. Not 100% sure where it's from. Actually, it's from a few days ago. I take it back. And again, just shows the policy that's in place by NYPD leadership. Some cops could do anything they want, chase cars and violate all the policies. Some cops could violate the use of force policy. And others can't even do their job properly because they're held to a very high standard, a standard so high that it's actually impossible. And you're going to see what should have been a simple takedown by two cops turn into a complete debacle with almost 4 or 5 cops being unable to control an out-of-hand female, right? Because this is the training in the police academy. This is the policy. This is the diaphragm law. This is the training around the diaphragm law. The RAP system that the jiu-jitsu expert put into place is great when the person's on the floor, but they fail to ever show you how to actually get that person on the floor. So again, this has been happening since Eric Garner, right? Eric Garner, they literally changed everything in the police department. But until today, they still never told you, how do I take Eric Garner to the ground? How do I take a suspect to the ground? There's zero training on the most integral part of fighting. It's great. You're a great ground grappler. Great. You're a great boxer. Great. Every fight starts standing up, and you go to the ground. Other than in boxing, where there's referees and there's rules, there are no rules out here. When there are no rules, the fight will last about 5 to 10 seconds standing up, and will go to the ground. Yet the New York City Police Department only trains you on how to throw punches and what to do once people are on the ground. How do you get them on the ground without smacking someone in the head with a metal pipe or punching them viciously over and over again? How does that thing happen? How does it happen? We don't know. It's a mystery. I know how it happens. The way that Daniel Pantaleo took Eric Garner to the ground using the seatbelt maneuver, that's how you take someone to the ground. That's how I was trained to take someone to the ground. That's how Eric was trained to take someone to the ground. It works because that's how you take someone to the ground. But we don't know it. We don't know it. But NYPD cannot train you because that was supposedly wrong. And Daniel Pantaleo got fired for actually following his training. So I'm going to show you the cops following their training on how to take someone to the ground. So pay very close attention for any of that wannabe cops. This is the training that the NYPD, this is a systemic failure in public safety, again, under Eric Adams.
What? Go what? Kamari, back up, Kamari. Back up. Yo, what is going on? This is crazy. Oh my God. Why are you on her? This is crazy.
Oh my God. You don't know what you did, right? But that's why you even if you do something, that don't mean 6 y'all don't exactly. I need better training. You're the one damn woman.
It took 5 cops to get a resisting female to the ground. 5.
John, I say this all the time, train jiu-jitsu. So there's 3 facets to jiu-jitsu. There's sport jiu-jitsu, there's competition jiu-jitsu, and then there's self-defense jiu-jitsu. So I train all of them. I compete myself. I train in the gym with the guys. And I also do it for the purposes of self-defense. Now, when you train for sport jiu-jitsu, sometimes you start on the knees, you start sitting down, and you wrestle. Obviously, you're not going to start like that in real life. Some people say, that's kind of stupid. Well, it's for sport jiu-jitsu. It's about the art of it. But when you're training for self-defense purposes, you train standing up. And I would always say that your jiu-jitsu is only as good as your takedown. Because if I can't get you down to the ground, how are we actually going to have this mutual combative fight? And you're absolutely right, John. I agree with you. They train you in the academy how to punch someone. They train you, for the most part, how to get someone cuffed who's kind of compliant or maybe a little resistance on the ground. But we're missing that link, that chain in between. How do you get someone to the ground? And every time I watch cops, the overwhelming majority, I've seen a couple outliers, but when I watch the overwhelming majority of cops trying to get someone down to the ground, I cringe and it hurts me just to watch it because I see the lack of training there. And this goes beyond right now about CCRB and all the potential liability that's out there right now. You can clearly see that there's just absolutely no training on how to take someone down. I'm watching them do it, and it's such an epic failure. And yes, it's starting to get a little better. They tried in the police department with this different training. I think it was called Y2K training, whatever it was at the time with Breath Mints, and other times where they're having skilled practitioners in the academy actually teach in-service members. But one time is just not enough. You have to do this stuff over and over. You know, John, when I was competing in Malaysia, I would take a mat outside and I would practice a double leg 100 times. And even then, I still had to find details to fix it and correct it. So for police officers to learn one time how to take someone down, it's just checking a box. And I feel sorry when I watch them do this. I can't get someone to the ground. It hurts me to watch. I cringe. And they're using so much effort and they're getting so tired because of the lack of training. And with a little training, if they did it constantly, they would get it right. But at the same token, it's about optics. Eric Adams and also prior administrations, they don't want you taking someone down to the ground. And we see the results. The byproduct, unfortunately, if you're non-compliant, is what happened with the Eric Garner case. You could lose your life. We hear about non-lethal and we hear about lethal. Anytime that you're in an encounter and you use force, the adverse outcome, it could be lethal. Someone could meet their demise. You take someone down to the ground and you're using their body to hit the earth, they could meet their unfortunate tragic demise. You deploy a strike. You're wrestling someone and they're just out of breath and they have a heart condition. So unfortunately, the reality is, and the onus has to be, and that the message has to be with the public, is if you're not compliant, you're taking your life into your own hands. Because you would not go into the ring, even if you were just going to do a smoker, and two guys that are untrained. You're not going to compete 3 rounds, even a minute or a minute and a half, if you've never worked out, because your heart is just not going to be able to handle it. And the same thing goes if you're a perpetrator or you're someone that's resistant to the police, and you don't work out and your cardio is not there. Well, you can meet your own tragic demise, and it's unfortunate. But this is what we see here: a complete failure, absolute zero training. And I feel sorry for these cops. Zero. I cringe when I see it.
I feel terrible for them. I don't even blame them at all. I honestly don't. And dude, have you ever seen one of these fights where the body cameras don't fall off? All of them. I've never seen one fight where the body camera stays on. Not one. We can't get these guys body cameras that doesn't come off in a fight. I haven't seen it one. Every time we see it, the body cameras go flying. Every time they're looking for their body camera. I get the radio. You're on and off with it, but this is fixated on you. We can't like come up with something that's a hard ask. That these guys aren't, because obviously you're worried about losing that body. You lose that body camera, you're gonna have a big problem, right? Lose a lot of vacation days, lose a lot of pay, scolded. I don't get it. And then somebody on here was talking about immediate taser deployment. Listen, if you think that taser is getting through that bubble jacket, good luck. Try it. I'll give you 10 shots. I doubt you get it through once. I doubt, and I'm not even talking about while she's fighting me. I'm talking about us standing there like this, like a target, and you being 5 feet away from her. Let me see how that works for you. Then we'll get up close to her and do it. Let me see it. I'll give you 10 tries. I don't think that's getting through once. You think that they had the ability to use the taser here? Let's try to get a good shot of her bubble jacket.
John, that's these guys think the taser is a magic wand. That's insane. That's not realistic at all. Look what she's wearing.
She's got a huge bag and a huge bubble jacket, a huge bag in front of her. She's layered. She's got multiple layers of clothes on. Do you think those prongs are getting in her? And you're going to get the proper spread.
First of all, you have several cops here trying to apprehend this perpetrator. How are you going to deploy this taser? Everyone's going to step back for a second. Oh, hold on a minute. Everybody it's not realistic. And the other thing that they have to teach cops, and this is something that's not taught, is that sometimes less is more when it comes to use of force. Sometimes the cops, when there's numerous cops getting involved in a pile-on, their own resistance upon each other is worse than if it was 2 cops that, hey, we'll take this person down and the rest of the cops control the crowd. But when you have 4 or 5 cops, their own weight distribution, resistance starts to work against each other. John, I'm sure it's happened to you. It happened to me. I grew up in some rough neighborhoods. I got jumped before. And you know what happens when you get jumped? You feel nothing. It's almost like they're beating up each other. It's happened to me, right? You don't feel anything. It's almost worse when you get into a fight one-on-one with a guy. But when you got a bunch of guys jumping on you, you just ball up and they end up they end up kind of hurting each other. And it's the same thing with the cops. Less is more when it comes to use of force.
Yeah, I've never gotten in a fight since age 13. If you check my, so I don't know. But one time I know a guy that he was in a bar and he got jumped by a bunch of dudes and they smacked a bottle over his head and he had no idea until he left. And then his friends told him. That was it. A handsome guy.
Was he bald?
Now he is. He wasn't then.
Did his name rhyme with Tom? But honestly, it really is an epic fail, and I get it. I think that the training that was implemented and applied by Henry Gracie is fantastic. It really is. It's great training. It's not something that you're going to learn one time. You have to do this over and over. It would take years to actually learn that move. And I'm not kidding. I'm not saying months. Years to be so effective where it's in your neural pathways. But again, the missing link is getting someone to the ground. It's so important that people understand that jiu-jitsu, wrestling, these are great martial arts to understand, but you have to get that person to the ground. Most people say that fights end up on the ground, and there's a lot of truth to that. But where they start in the stand-up position. So I have to agree with you. That's absolutely spot on.
But listen. So you can't put pressure on her diaphragm at all, but you could run her over with a car. So you got to look at it. That's the Eric Adams form of public safety. Just get in the RMP, throw your lights on, say it was a vehicle pursuit, run her over. Right? That's what. That's what. But yeah, I don't really think the tase is an option there. It is what it is.
It's not an option.
They've done nothing to correct this. They've done no. This is people blast the people on the video. I'm never blasting these cops. This is a systemic failure in training. We've pointed it out over and over and over again. The problem is systemic. People are like, oh, it's the hiring. No, these are the people this is how they're trained. You see some big dudes in there. You see some athletic people in there. And yes. Every video, you see people that were more than capable as any of us would be. It's not that. It's the training. I mean, we see it over and over again. It's the same video over and over and over again. 5 people, you're all trying to do the same thing. Always in the cell, it was always because we've never really had good training. Like if someone went crazy in the cell, that's when I noticed us would work against each other a lot. I've had it. I still have a bad back today from a fight in the cell. I didn't go the whole route of doing it, but I have my back. Sometimes I'm out, and it's from a fight in the cell. 2 cops pulling this way, I'm pulling the perp, and the perp's pulling that way, and I'm pulling them this way, and they all came with me. And next thing I know, I was like, I just felt warm, hot, go right up my back. I was like, oh boy. And I was all right until the next day when I woke up and my back was swollen. And I still every now and then I tweak it.
What's the sad part, John? Here's the sad part, and it's no reflection of the cops that are at the academy right now, because there are some talented guys at the academy that have extensive backgrounds in martial arts, that have competitions out there, an extensive amount. Shout out to my buddy Gustavo, who's a black belt from Brazil. I mean, this guy is fantastic. He ran a jiu-jitsu program at the academy. I hope he's still doing it. But he had a lot of he was impeded and a lot of interception from the politics at the academy. And they really didn't allow him to be in a position of leadership and train people and utilize it. There was a lot of politics in there, a lot of jealousy. So it's unfortunate. There's plenty of guys there that have, and women that have a lot of talent who could teach these guys, but they're not allowing them to teach it. They don't want them to teach it. And even if they do, one time is just not enough. I don't care who you are. If you're Michael Jordan did become a superstar because he learned something one time. He practiced and he practiced. Stephen Curry doesn't shoot from half court and get it in because he shot it one time. He probably practiced shooting 20,000 times. And they say it takes 10,000 times to become a master. That's why as you go on in your career, you become more effective because you're doing these things over and over. It's about volume. And it's the same thing with training. You have to train. There's no other way of getting around it. But training one time to check a box is irresponsible. And then put these cops out there in these precarious positions, and they're getting exhausted. And sometimes, people are laughing at them. You have 5 cops trying to take down this female because they don't know what they're doing. And it's not their fault. I feel sorry for them. And as you said, you look at them, some of them very capable. They're young, they're in shape, but they don't have the proper training. And if you're doing something and you're doing it wrong, you're going to be exhausted. It doesn't matter how much shape you're in. It's going to be ineffective. And it looks silly. It looks silly. And if they had the proper training, they could get this person down to the ground, get them in cuffs. They could be in and out in a minute. And there's less cameras, less footage, less people out there, less time of an audience. But again, ineffective training leads to these video outcomes that we see on a constant basis.
Yeah, it's I named 3 times that I was trained to physically fight, right? 2 of them were in July of 2004. One was we had a boxing class that lasted about 4 seconds. So I boxed somebody for about 4 seconds. The other part was we were on our knees, right? They would put you on your knees. And I was the guy they had to cuff. 2 people on their knees. I'm on my knees, and they had to cuff me. So those were the 2 instances of physical fighting that I was trained. And then again, when I did plainclothes training, all the dudes in jiu-jitsu. And that really, it was more like a jiu-jitsu exhibition than it really was plainclothes training. But it was good training, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great time. I thought those guys were great. But those are the only time. Pat Donahue says you can't train hard. You can't train fight. I agree and disagree with you. You can't make someone be who they're not, right? You're not going to take the guy that put his head down and got smacked around in high school, and now all of a sudden he's going to be a superhero. It's just not. It just is what it is. Some people are built different. It just is what it is, right? But you could train fear out, not fear out, but you could train people how to react in stress and fear. You could train people, and how you do that is by training and make them comfortable. Now, I understand in a department as large as the NYPD, training is hard to come by, right? It's just hard, right? You go to the range twice a year. Everyone knows that's not enough, right? Compared to the amount of rounds of Fed shoots to train, and you look at the NYPD training, you're a novice. You're a novice at shooting. I consider myself a novice at shooting. I don't consider myself an intermediate at shooting. And I'm a pretty good shot, and I still consider myself a novice because I really just don't have that type of training. I train more now in retirement than I did in the police department. But in the police department, think about that. In an 18-year career, I trained 3 times how to physically apprehend somebody. Have you received any more training than that, Eric?
No, the training that I got was on my own time because they took my own pride in it. But the actual training for the job was minimal. Exactly what you said. Plainclothes training. But again, you're right. It was more like a seminar, and it wasn't actually attributed to what I'm going to do in plainclothes. And I thought it was kind of a mishmash when it came to that actual training. But for the most part, no. They train you for opposite sides of the spectrum. They train you for the person that's completely compliant, how to put the cuffs on someone who's completely compliant. And then they train you for the person that might be presenting a knife or a firearm. But we're missing what happens in between. And again, I think that Patrick Donahue, I have to agree with him in the sense that I train. Training should be playful. When it comes to physical fitness, yes, that should be hard. You should work out tough. But when you're actually involved in martial arts, if it's boxing or if it's jiu-jitsu or wrestling, that kind of training should be playful. It shouldn't be trained to the point that you get hurt. It should be playful. And when it's playful, you actually learn to overcome those anxieties. You lose that twitch, right? If you and I, John, if we never trained boxing before, and I did, but let's say you box, now you know. But you and I, if we decide we're going to go train, and if we start going balls to the wall, we never trained before, we're going to be twitching like this. But when you train light and playful, that's where you learn to lose that twitch. And you start to see things, and then you start to ramp it up a little more. That's how you learn. So it should be playful. And if you're learning and it's in your neural pathways, when it comes time to actually go hard in the street and your life is on the line, or you have to make an apprehension, though it will kick in and you'll be able to go hard. So it should be playful, especially boxing. And I think they did it wrong. The way that they did the academy, I thought was completely wrong. They took 2 guys that had no idea about boxing, and they said, okay, go. And what are they going to do? They're both going to be scared. They tense up. They bite down on that mouthpiece real hard and they go at it. That's not how you learn boxing. That's just punching. But to learn boxing, it should be playful and lose that anxiety. You know, Floyd Mayweather, when he trains, he's not going balls to the wall. That's how you get hurt, and you won't have longevity in training. So it's a complete failure. They should have done it where it's playful and do it constant, where people will actually learn how to fight. You learn how to fight by being playful, but not by going hard. If you go hard, your shelf life in training will be short-lived. If I went hard every time I trained jiu-jitsu, I wouldn't last. It's impossible. Tom, shout out to you, $1.99 coffee and donuts. Training in NYPD is a privilege. It's for the chosen. Spot on, brother. It's so true. Why is it that training is like a secret squirrel society? We talk about cost. We could spend millions on car accidents in these vehicle pursuits, but we don't spend money on training. Most of our money, the money spent in the police department should be for training. If we had effective and trained police officers, we would have better outcomes in the street. We would have less police officers getting injured. We would have less police officers get assaulted. We would have confident police officers. They would have a reputation and an aura, and the public would think twice before. If those police officers were so trained and people knew, wow, they're going to take me down and get me cuffs in 2 seconds, they would think twice. Lizette says, John, you were obviously a trained bodybuilder and weightlifter by the development of your chest and biceps bulging out of your tight shirts. That's hilarious. Shout out to Lizette.
All you do is just wear medium shirts, Lizette. It makes you look bigger. You know, it makes your arms look bigger. But yeah, no, Tom's right? Like it's a training's hard to come by in the NYPD. I know you're on a tight schedule, so I think we got to wrap this up. But my last thing on the training in the NYPD is we could train people for the defibrillator. We could train people to do AED every year. We could train people for all this nonsense. We could give at least a day a year to take down teamwork, team training. You know, I agree that it's your life. You need to work out on your own. The NYPD is not going to give you time for that. I get it. Or whatever company you work for. But this is a core mission of your job. Like, this is a vital thing that you do in your job every day. You know, I mean, like, how are we not giving more training to that? It's something that you're going to do. You know, the use of force is going to happen every day. If you're on New York City streets, you're responding to 911 calls. Whether you ever want to put your hands on someone or not isn't your choice. You're going to every single day. So the least they could do is once a year, twice a year. I'm not saying anything crazy, but there should be something. There should be some type of refresher. Like, this is how we're going to work together. This is how we're working with the new legislation. This is the new issues that we're seeing in CCRB. This is the issue that we're seeing in IAB. This is the flavor. We're training you to effectively do your job and actually keep you safe as well. I mean, I don't think that's a hard thing. I don't. Call me crazy, but hey, let's just continue to spend hundreds of $millions on vehicle pursuits that end up in crashes. That's a great thing, because, you know, we probably got like 4 people off the streets in New York City. So
I just don't get, you know, the excuse from guys I used to work with was, I don't have time. The job should pay for it. And I don't get it. For me, I would train for 2 reasons. One, just in life, you know, I don't want to walk into a room of big burly men and feel like, I don't want to feel that anxiety. Like, and I don't care what anybody says. When men are around other men, they always question, you know, how do I stand in this hierarchy here? Let's be honest. When men look at other men, you know, how do I stand this high? Can I hold my own? And that's important to men. It's part of masculinity, and that's why men are respectful amongst one another, because there's that potential for confrontation, right? So I want to walk into a room so that I could be good and I could be nice because I'm comfortable with myself. And all men should want that. You know, if you've never trained in your life and you walk, I ask myself, what does that feel like if you walk into a room of other men, not knowing how you would stand there and thinking that, you know, going out lifting weights is going to be enough? I don't agree. But if you've never been involved in a confrontation, how do you know how well you would do? Just because you want to believe you'll do good. If you never rode a skateboard in your life, you're not going to be able to skateboard. And the same thing goes to fighting. If you never got to a fight in your life, you don't know how you're going to do. And also, you should want to train so that as a police officer, if you're involved in a use of force, where you have to take force or someone's going to use force against you, don't you want to know how you're going to respond? And if you've never trained before, you may think you respond well until it actually happens. There's no doubt about it. If you never cooked something in the kitchen before, how are you going to make a meal? If you never trained before, how are you going to fight? And unless you're a brawler who's constantly been in fights, just a byproduct that you grew up fighting the streets. Other than that, you're not being pressure tested.
Agreed. Joe, I'll be in Brooklyn a lot the next 2 weeks. I'm headed to New York City tomorrow. I'll be at my favorite bakery a lot, Villa Bot, 73rd and 18th. And I'll be bouncing around Bay Ridge, Dyka, all that good stuff. Staten Island, Jersey Shore. Might make a nice guest appearance at the Borgata once or twice. Who knows?
Listen, at some point we got to make it up to New York together. I haven't been to New York and since retirement, so at some point we definitely got to meet up in New York. And I'd love to meet some of our friends and listeners over here. We have a good time, get some cigars, and it'd be great to meet some of the people that we actually interact with here.
Absolutely. All right, brother. You want to end us out? Listen, we're not on tomorrow. We're gonna have a recorded episode we're gonna put out. We're not gonna put it out as a live. It's a recorded episode. Going to be Inspector Ron Layson, his interview. He gives us about a 40-minute monologue where he goes on a rant. But it was a great interview. Get to know Ron, great friend to this podcast. Actually, one of Eric's, not his immediate supervisor, but, as Eric said, he's helped him out throughout his career and really tried to get the stain off Eric's name and that he was targeted by the Civilian Complaint Review Board. So I think it was a great interview, great show. So check that out. We're going to be doing some more episodes. We're going to try to get back to you. I don't know what Friday's going to be like, but let's see how that plays out. I got a lot of things lined up on Friday, but we'll be back and, we'll be up live. We'll be live. It might be some weird days. It might be like a Saturday, it might be a Sunday, it might be a Tuesday. It's not going to be consistent Monday through Friday during the holidays, but we'll be on. Check us out. Check out Ron's interview. I'm looking forward to that coming out. I actually didn't get a chance to watch it yet. So, Eric, got anything to end us off?
Yeah, listen, I appreciate the friends and listeners. We're getting close to Christmas. I hope everyone is getting ready for the holidays. I hope you have enjoyed stuff with your family. Prayers to you and your families. If anyone's having any health issues, unfortunately, it seems to come around during the times of holidays. And to our trolls and haters over here, I appreciate you too. You make me laugh. I mean, some of the stuff's somebody Labro saying, "What are these two smoking weed?" Or we babbling it. It's pretty funny. We don't take anything seriously. That's all right. If that makes you feel better, if you enjoy, making fun of myself and John and makes you enjoy your day, God bless. I laugh at it. Seriously, really appreciate building this network. All I ask again is some of you saying here, please like and subscribe. Like the podcast. Help us build this podcast together. Let's go into 2025 strong. We appreciate what our friends and listeners. Share this out on X so people can see the live. And if not, if they missed it, they can see the recorded. As the holidays come up, we will keep you posted. John and I, please take the social media. We'll let you know if shows are coming up. Some of you have our numbers. You can contact us. So we'll play it ear by ear as we get close to the holidays. So with that being said, Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah to all. And thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And I have to say, listen, honestly, a recommendation, get out there and train. Get out there and train. I don't care what it is. If you're not even policing anymore, do it for yourself. Do it for your family. Just enjoy it. And when you go to a gym, a recommendation, it should be playful. If it's not playful, if there's people there that are trying to hurt you because they have egos, that's not the gym. That's not where you go. That's not how you learn. You lose your ego and you go out there and you train and you practice, and that's how you become better. So with that being said, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Shout out to everybody. Enjoy your day off tomorrow. Sleep in late. If you're on the job right now, bang in. Put your 28 in. You tell Juju, John and Eric are not live tomorrow. So, get some rest out there. Pat Codney, take care, brother. Thank you.
And Eric, before we go, one thing you just remind me. So I run the analytics from time to time. I usually don't look. I know the amount of downloads we get a month. I look at that like at the end of the month every month. But I was looking through the analytics the other day. I'm like, how don't we have way more subscribers with all of these downloads? So I looked at it, and 50% of the people that listen to every podcast aren't subscribed. So do us a favor. If you're on here, subscribe under a fake name. Subscribe under a fake account if you're afraid. Do us the favor. If not, whatever. I understand, but I think it's crazy. I was like, wow. Because I'm looking at all these numbers and I'm like, how are we getting all these downloads and we have such little subscribership? And it's like 50% of the people, and that's not, there's people that come on and watch and they're not subscribed, and I get that. But 50% of the people that watch every single episode are subscribed. I'm like, that's crazy, And so, I just thought that was funny. I was like, that was the funniest thing. So yeah, if you guys could do us a favor, if you're on here, I mean, we had about 600 people with us the whole time. There'll be 1,000 within the next 2 hours. If you guys could just do us a favor, leave a comment, subscribe, we appreciate you. If not, I understand. Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to the haters. That was all I had to end on. I'm sorry.
And Lizette says happy Hanukkah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Lizette says that you must be pretty sexy to the ladies, John. So I think she has a thing for bald men. So listen, shout out to you, Lizette. We appreciate it. Have some good fun here. Enjoy your day off tomorrow, Friday, and we'll figure it out. Maybe we'll see you this weekend. Talk to you soon.
Some women like bald and ugly. What are you gonna do?
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.